When I was a little kid, Kotone's mother said my round head, round face, and round belly made me look extremely cute. She even said she wanted me to be her son-in-law. However, Kotone, standing right beside us, listened with a look of utter disgust. Who would want to marry this little fatty? She even made a bold threat. If I could grow up to have a sharp-featured face, the kind of handsome, wealthy, and aloof male god type, she would drop to her knees on the spot and propose to me. Unfortunately, before I could grow up and pull off a reverse counterattack, my family packed me up and threw me abroad. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was the final year of high school. I made up my mind to return to Japan and prepare to sprint toward the university entrance exams, but the moment news of my return spread, the whole school instantly exploded. Everyone was waiting to watch the Shura field between the school belle's current boyfriend and her former fiancé, and placing bets on who would have the last laugh. The school belle even publicly taunted that someone like me, who grew up abroad, must be rustic and fat. Meanwhile, my cousin, who was bewitched by her, wanted to kick me while I was down, but the moment he saw me in person, his face flushed bright red in a flash. In his mind, he instantly imagined a grand drama, fantasizing about the whole class surrounding me and begging for my autograph. Even my future father-in-law and mother-in-law, who used to ignore me completely, underwent a 180-degree attitude reversal the moment they saw me, practically wishing they could pluck the stars from the sky and hand them to me. At that moment, the butler who picked me up at the airport stared so hard his eyes almost popped out of his head, and he kept muttering that the young master in person was 100 times more handsome than in his photos. But how could those people at school know what I look like now? They actually went to an online forum to start a betting pool, wagering on whether I was a stunning divine beauty or an utterly hideous savage. The post instantly rocketed to the trending list. The gossip-loving spectators at Meitoku High School went completely crazy, thinking the drama couldn't get big enough as they frantically placed their bets. Now, the entire school was craning their necks, just waiting for the day I transferred and reported to school so they could see with their own eyes what I actually looked like. But what made everyone's eyeballs drop to the floor was that after returning to Japan, I didn't go look for Kiyoha Shimizu at all. Instead, I headed straight to her family's house to confront her parents face-to-face and call off the engagement. The moment I stepped out of the Shimizu family's front gates, Mrs. Shimizu pulled out her smartphone. The call connected and she roared furiously, "Kiyoha Shimizu, get your ass back here right now. If you aren't home within 10 minutes, I'll pretend I never had a daughter." Mrs. Shimizu poured all her fury onto Kiyoha Shimizu. In that sharp, screeching roar, there wasn't a single shred of her usual aristocratic grace left. Kiyoha Shimizu was hit head-on by a barrage of curses from her mother, leaving her completely dazed. Standing right beside her, Daido Tengu heard every single word clearly, quietly clenching his fists as a flash of resentment and reluctance crossed his face. Why did Mrs. Shimizu always look down on him? Wasn't it just because his family background was ordinary? Exactly what point of his was inferior to that man he had never even met? Daito Tengu's eye sockets grew hot as tears welled up. He spoke with a crying lunge in his voice. "Kiyoha, you should hurry back. Auntie must have gotten this furious because she found out you came to see me." Looking at Daito Tengu's tears, Kiyoha Shimizu's heart ached terribly. She raised her hand to pull him tightly into her embrace, gently soothing him. "Foolish Tengu, don't cry. How could this ever be your fault? It's all because my mom is too overbearing and always acts so impulsively. But this is the first time she's been this furious, so I have to go back right away and check on her before she turns around and comes after you to settle accounts." Daito Tengu's body stiffened slightly, a dark, gloomy look flashing swiftly across the depths of his eyes. He cursed inwardly. As expected, this loser Kiyoha is completely unreliable. If I rely on him myself, his heart will definitely still favor him. At that moment, Kiyoha Shimizu took out her phone to check the time and only then pushed Daito Tengu out of her arms. With a hurried tone, she said, "There's no time left. You head back by yourself first. I won't walk you today. See you at school tomorrow." Daito Tengu squeezed out an obedient, sweet smile. "You hurry back. See you tomorrow." The moment Kiyoha Shimizu's car drove away, The smile vanished from Daito Tengu's face instantly. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and his voice carried a crying tremble. "Hello, Yuki? Are you free right now? I got left stranded by the roadside. I can't get home. I'm so scared." After hearing the response she wanted to hear, Daito Tengu hung up the phone and sat alone by the roadside, waiting. Daito. Unreconciled, he frantically refreshed the page several times, but those posts had already vanished completely without a trace. Daito Tengu punched the ground in anger. Damn it, what rotten luck today. Meanwhile, a frantic Kyoha Shimizu hurried all the way toward the Shimizu family mansion. As soon as she stepped inside, she saw Mrs. Shimizu sitting on the sofa with a gloomy face, her entire body radiating a do-not-approach aura of fury. Kyoha Shimizu's heart sank heavily, and she nervously swallowed hard. No matter how domineering she was at school, in front of her own birth mother, she still had to be as obedient as a little lamb. The moment Mrs. Shimizu saw her enter, she didn't even waste words, standing up and marching right toward her. Startled, Kyoha Shimizu instantly reached out and brushed away Kyoha Shimizu's hand, turning around to walk over and sit back down by the sofa, making it clear she was just there to watch the show. Realizing her backing was gone, Kyoha Shimizu simply dropped all pretense and raised her voice. "Mom, what on earth do you want? You told me to get back in 10 minutes. Didn't I make it without being late? I just don't want to marry someone I don't like. Is that really so wrong? I'm your biological daughter. What right do you have to use my marriage as a bargaining chip?" Beside them, Satsuki Shimizu felt a sour ache in his heart. Kyoha didn't want this match, but he wanted it. Oh, if only he could be the protagonist of this marriage arrangement. How wonderful that would be. Then he could openly pursue him. But, after listening, Mrs. Shimizu sneered, and with a flick of her hand, tossed a piece of jade pendant. He stood frozen in place, turning the object over and over in his hands, his mind blank. What on earth was this? This jade pendant had always been kept personally by Mrs. Shimizu. Kyoha Shimizu had never even seen it before, let alone recognized it. Gritting her back molars, Mrs. Shimizu stared straight at her. "This is the token of your engagement. Today, Akira Go personally came to our house. He specifically brought this jade pendant back to return it, making it clear that he wants to break off the engagement with you face to face." Satsuki Shimizu's hand holding the teacup gave a violent tremor. His eyes filled with disbelief. So he came today to call off the engagement? The haze weighing heavily on his heart instantly scattered, and the massive boulder on his chest came crashing down. This whole affair was practically absurd. He had already prepared himself to bear the curses of others just to poach his sister's corner. But who could have imagined that the corner didn't even need poaching? The guy walked away all on his own. Staring deathly at the jade pendant in her palm, Kyoha Shimizu couldn't suppress the smile on her face at all. She couldn't help exclaiming, "Mom, are you telling the truth? That Akira Go took the initiative to come and break off the engagement? Ha ha! Isn't that wonderful for everyone then?" It figures Akira Go has some self-awareness. He knew he wasn't good enough for me, so he rushed to call it off. Hearing the words "not good enough" pop out of her mouth, both Mrs. Shimizu and Satsuki Shimizu's mouths twitched fiercely. Where on earth does this dead girl get her nerve? Looking at this foolish daughter, Mrs. Shimizu's eyes were filled with undisguised disappointment and coldness. She wearily pressed her forehead, wondering what on earth she had missed. Yet Kyoha Shimizu unconcernedly curled her lip. "Tengu, how did he get reduced to being worthless in your mouth? Not only is he handsome, but his grades at school are also consistently at the top, securing a spot in the top 10 of his grade across 4 exams. On top of that, he's secretly self-studied 4 foreign languages and can already switch fluently between multiple tongues. How can someone so outstanding and hardworking become completely useless the moment he's in your mouth?" The more Kyoha Shimizu talked, the more worked up she got. That Akira Go is just riding on his family's couple of stinking bucks anyway, and our family doesn't rely on political marriages to get by. To speak my true mind, that Akira Go probably isn't even worth a single hair on Tengu's head. "You rebellious daughter, shut your mouth!" Two furious roars exploded inside the hall simultaneously. Satsuki Shimizu's eye sockets turned crimson as he glared viciously at her. This girl is blind herself, yet she still dares to smear Akira. Go like this right in front of us. Seeing how furious her mother and older brother were acting, Kyoha Shimi was also startled. "What on earth is wrong with the two of you today? Mom, that Akira Go only met you once. How can you defend him like this? And you too, big brother." Kyoha Shimizu was so angry she gnashed her teeth in utter defiance. "That Akira Go really has some tricks. Coming to our house once has you two completely bewitched. I bet this engagement cancellation is just his game of playing hard to get. He's just trying to hook my brother using this trick." I never imagined Akira Go could be so scheming. A man with that kind of deep city-like craftiness, even if you gave him to me for free, I wouldn't want him. Hearing Kyoha Shimizu's increasingly outrageous smearing, Mrs. Shimizu finally lost it, raising her hand to deliver a crisp, sharp slap. With fingertips trembling from rage, she pointed right at Kyoha Shimizu's nose and lashed out sternly. "You hopeless rebel! Get back to your room right now and reflect on yourself." Meanwhile, with the major trouble of the engagement cancellation finally resolved, I felt entirely relaxed. At the dining table, I smiled brightly and looked toward my uncle. "Uncle, can I go report to my new school today?" Mountain Go glanced at his nephew's flawless face, thinking inwardly, once he steps foot into the school, the place is going to explode. Seeing my earnest and expectant look, he hesitated for a moment before speaking with careful phrasing. "Don't worry, I've already arranged everything at the school. You can go whenever you want. Also, teaching methods abroad are a bit different from domestic ones. Don't panic if you don't adjust right away. Just take it slow." I gave an obedient nod, my tone gentle. "Thank you for your concern, Uncle. I'll do my best." The most excited person present was my cousin, Nine Go. The moment he heard the news, he hopped in place with excitement. "That's wonderful. From now on, big brother, we can go to school together every day." Looking at his soft and adorable appearance, the corners of my eyes couldn't help curving upward. "All right, I'm also looking forward to going to school with you." Nene Go bounced around like, oh no, could I really be falling for my big brother? But I'm a guy too, and besides, he's my own biological cousin. What am I supposed to do? Could my orientation have actually turned bent? A few heat-inducing, heart-fluttering images suddenly flashed through Nene Go, scaring him into violently shaking his head. Madame Go looked at her own son's erratic, jumpy behavior, then turned to glance at the gracefully poised Akira Go. She couldn't help sighing. Forget it. There's no comparison at all. Her own foolish son wasn't even worth a single hair on that boy. The family gathered and harmoniously finished breakfast. Nenigo and I climbed into the back seat together. Since I had just returned to China and hadn't received my school uniform yet, I wore my own casual clothes today. I had deliberately picked out a well-tailored shirt, and this outfit immediately left both accompanying Koya-yan and Ninego dumbfounded. By the time the three of us rushed to the school gates, only a few minutes remained of morning self-study. I immediately urged them to head to the teaching building first, telling them I would go to the director's office to report by myself. At that moment, the morning warning bell suddenly rang, but Koharu Lin didn't care in the slightest. The moment she stepped through the school gates, her gaze was firmly locked onto that figure not far away. Sunlight draped her in a soft golden border. She looked like an elf wandering through the campus, her steps brisk and poised. Guided by some unexplainable impulse, instead of hurrying to her classroom, she followed far behind, her heartbeat acting a bit out of control. Unawares, I had already walked deep into the campus. I unexpectedly caught sight of a clear, bright pond where a few elegant black swans were leisurely swimming. One particularly dainty swan was approaching the shoreline, joyfully rolling around in the water. That soft, adorable sight completely melted my heart. I couldn't help squatting down to tentatively stretch out my fingertip. "Hello there, little swan." The little fellow wasn't afraid of people at all. It let out a couple of quacks and took the initiative to approach, gently rubbing its head against my fingertip. Seeing this scene, a smile bloomed in the depths of my eyes. Right at that moment, a clear young girl's voice reached me. "I advise you best not to mess with them. They're very territorial and will bite." I looked toward the sound, and the moment my gaze collided with the girl standing behind me, Koharu Lin felt as though the world had suddenly hit the pause button. The boy before her had eyes like a painting, so breathtakingly handsome he didn't seem real, looking like a piece of flawless jade. She lost her mind on the spot, completely unable to tear her gaze away. She had never imagined there could be such elegance in this world, as if 10,000 stars lost their light in his presence. It wasn't until the little black swan's call broke the silence that Koharu Lin snapped back to her senses, a layer of natural rosy blush blooming across her cheeks. She instinctively stepped a bit closer to me, her voice slightly tangled. I just wanted to remind you." I openly raised a bright smile. "Thank you for the reminder." It was precisely this casual smile that made Koharu Lin's heart flutter violently once more. Suppressing the palpitation in her chest, she tentatively probed, "Are you looking for someone here?" "As the saying goes, a graceful maiden, I'm a student who just transferred today. I just haven't reported yet." I glanced around and added with a slightly troubled expression, "By the way, do you happen to know where the senior year director's office is?" "Transferred to senior year. Koharu Lin, could you tell me your name?" With a smile at the corners of my mouth, I openly met her gaze. "Hello, classmate. My name is Akira Go." The two words Akira Go exploded in Koharu Lin's mind like golden thunder, and that last shred of hope shattered instantly. Her entire body felt like it was plunging into an ice cellar, bone-chilling cold crawling all over her from the soles of her feet in an instant. How could it be? How could it possibly be him, that legendary eldest young lady of the Go family, Kyoha Shimizu's fiancé? She desperately tried to squeeze out a smile, but the corners of her mouth refused to obey her. In the end, only an indescribable bitterness remained. "Hello, my name is Koharu Lin." Her voice trembled uncontrollably. "I'm also in senior year, I'll take." "You?" Sensing acutely that something was off with her, I couldn't help asking with concern, "Koharu Lin, are you feeling unwell? Why is your complexion so pale?" I'm fine." Koharu Lin barely rallied her spirit and shook her head lightly. She immediately turned around to lead the way, as if fleeing from something. "Let's hurry up and go." Thus, she guided me as we continued forward. Just at that moment, the two of us happened to pass by a teaching building. Since it was class time, a student sitting by the window was staring out, completely lost in thought. However, the moment she lifted her head, her gaze locked onto the scene outside the window, and her entire body was struck as if by lightning. Outside the window, I was walking past at a leisurely pace, seeming to radiate light under the sunlight. Skin more translucent and fairer than a bathroom vapor, short jet black hair shimmering with soft light, my entire appearance too handsome for the mortal realm. "Holy cow!" That female student stared with wide, incredulous eyes, her mouth gaping wide enough to stuff an egg. "Male god!" A single exclamation, like a pebble tossed into a calm lake, instantly stirred up 1,000 ripples. What male god? Where? Students sitting near the windows curiously poked their heads out to look. Following that, waves of breathless gasps sounded inside the classroom. The commotion rapidly spread across the entire class, instantly causing it to completely blow up. Even the teacher on the podium was unable to maintain order. "Quiet! What are y'all looking at? The teak!" Everybody. Amidst the commotion, a daring student giggled and chimed in. "Teacher, you can believe it now, right?" Recovering her wits, the teacher's old face turned red, but she immediately straightened her expression, snorted, and slammed her desk down, shouting, "Stop looking, all of you! No matter how handsome a male god is, he isn't going to. Knowledge belongs to yourselves. Once you get into a good university, you'll have plenty of handsome boys." Although the teacher skillfully painted a grand picture, those burning gazes inside the classroom still stubbornly chased after that figure outside the window, unable to pull back for a long time. Watching this chaos, Koharu Lin frowned unconsciously. Just passing by had caused an entire classroom of people to lose their minds. This made a nameless emotion surge within her. Those clear eyes, limpid like spring water from the Tianshan Mountains, were overflowing with pure confusion, as if silently asking, "Why are they acting like this?" This single look made Koharu Lin's heart pound violently. What could possibly be wrong with him? He was just born good-looking. If you want to blame someone, blame those people for losing their composure. A strong sense of protectiveness welled up spontaneously. Koharu Lin's expression instantly turned fierce as she swept a vicious glare across the classroom windows. Some students recognized her and shrank their heads back in fright. At Meitoku High School, Koharu Lin's name in itself was a form of deterrence. The commotion finally calmed down somewhat as Koharu Lin led me to the office doorway. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. "Koharu-san, thank you so much." I pressed my palms together and bowed slightly, looking impossibly obedient. Watching me act like this, a trace of a smile flashed through Koharu Lin's gloomy eyes and a thought slipped out. "Since you're so grateful, why don't you treat me to lunch at noon?" I paused slightly, but immediately nodded. "All right, then let's exchange contact info." Looking at the newly added profile picture on the smartphone screen, Koharu Lin's lips couldn't help but curl upward, as if she had obtained some rare Western treasure. "Then wait for me to come and find you at noon." "All right, you go ahead to class now." After watching Koharu Lin leave, I realized only then that I had already made plans with Nenego for lunch. But on second thought, adding one more person didn't seem to matter. So I put away my phone, took a deep breath, and walked into the office. "Good morning, teachers. May I ask if Section Chief Hao is in?" The resonant and pleasant voice caused the teachers in the office to look up in unison. They saw an astonishingly handsome young man, standing upright at the door. The gazes of all the teachers in the office were as if pierced and attracted, firmly locked onto the young man at the door. I was peering inside, a trace of confusion in my expression. After a brief silence, seeing no response, I had to ask again. "Good morning, teachers. May I ask if Section Chief Hao is in?" This voice finally awakened the stunned crowd. Everyone's gaze turned in unison toward the corner. A slightly chubby, middle-aged man in the corner quickly stood up and trotted over to meet me. "You must be student." "Go, right?" His face was piled high with an ingratiating smile. "Hurry, come in." He led me to his desk and signaled for me to sit. He then pulled open a drawer, took out a brand new bag of tea leaves and skillfully brewed a cup of tea, sliding it over to me. Sharp-eyed teachers immediately recognized it as the Dahang Pao tea that Section Chief Hao was usually too stingy to drink himself. For a moment, everyone exchanged knowing glances. It seemed this transfer student was not only handsome, but also had a background that could not be underestimated. "Student Go, you must be thirsty. I just brewed some tea. I hope it suits your taste." Section Chief Hao rubbed his hands together, his wrinkled face blooming into a smile. I took the teacup and sipped it gently, my posture displaying extreme elegance. "Thank you, Chief. The tea is excellent." "Oh, your uncle has already greeted me about everything." Section Chief Hao laughed even more happily. "Do you have the documents? I'll process your enrollment for you right away." I took the documents out of my bag and handed them over. After quickly reviewing and confirming them, Section Chief Hao suggested, "Student Go, since you just returned from France, you should be more accustomed to the international class. Let me arrange for you to join the international class. How about that?" However, I shook my head, my tone calm and firm. "Teacher, I want to join the rocket class." Section Chief Hao's hand paused, thinking to himself that this kid must have had connections prepared in advance. He patiently explained, "The rocket class is allocated based on academic performance, with a fixed limit of 50 spots. If you cannot achieve the corresponding grades, you won't last a month even if you get in. It would be embarrassing then." After listening, I didn't retreat. Instead, I looked into his eyes with a smile. "I am aware of everything you said. Precisely for this reason, I want to go. As for the grades, feel free to find any set of exam papers for me. If I meet the standard, let me join the rocket class. If I don't meet the standard, I will have no complaints about going to any other class. How about it?" Watching me be so confident, Section Chief Hao couldn't bear to refuse. In his view, a delicate, quiet young man just returning from abroad might not even be fluent in Japanese, so how could he possibly handle the high-difficulty exams of a Japanese high school? But since things had come to this, he couldn't outright reject me. He sighed. rummaged through a cabinet, found a set of exam papers, and handed them over. I took one look and pointed out helplessly, "Section Chief Hao, this seems to be an exam for the second year." Ah, my old eyes are failing me, my old eyes are failing me. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Section Chief Hao's face turned red. He had no choice but to retract his little scheme and find a new set of exam papers. This is the monthly exam paper for the third year from last month. It's the fairest to use this. After confirming there were no issues, I picked up my pen and began to answer without the slightest hesitation. Watching me write with such speed, Section Chief Hao couldn't help but murmur to himself, "Is he really capable of doing this?" Meanwhile, in the classroom of the third-year rocket class, Yuki Eto was gazing at the door, her mind restless. A ballpoint pen spun rapidly at her fingertips. Even though more than half of the class had passed, the books on her desk remained unopened. Daito Tengu, sitting next to her, noticed her abnormality and gently poked her arm with the tip of his pen. He lowered his voice, asking with concern, "Yuki, are you feeling unwell?" Yuki Eto snapped back to reality, meeting his face full of worry, and felt a surge of emotion. Her voice softened. "I'm fine. Focus on class." Daito Tengu unconsciously pursed his lips, feeling a sense of discomfort. He always felt that Yuki Ito seemed to be hiding something from him. So he nudged her with his elbow again, leaned over, and whispered, "Yuki, thank you for sending me home last night. How about I treat you to lunch?" He wanted to probe the background of student Go, while Kyoha Shimizu wasn't there. Last night, Yuki Eto had been vague. Today, no matter what, he had to get the truth out of her. However, Daito Tengu could never have imagined that Yuki Eto, who always catered to his every request, would this time refuse so decisively. "I've already made plans for lunch. You should go eat with other friends." Daito Tengu was stunned. Made plans with someone? In his understanding, Yuki Eto shouldn't have any second friend at this school besides him. She had always been a loner, and as the top student in her grade, even after advancing to the first year, many people wanted to get close to her, but were all coldly rejected. Only he was the exception, simply because they were childhood sweethearts. This bond of growing up together made Daito Tengu feel smug countless times. But now, this sudden cold treatment made his temper flare up instantly. He let out a heavy snort, turned his head away sharply, and swore to himself that if she didn't come to coax him this time, he would never speak to her again. To his surprise, when the bell rang, Yuki Eto walked out of the classroom without even looking back. Daito Tengu gazed at her resolute back, and a strong sense of unease surged in his heart, as if something important was quietly slipping through his fingers. What he didn't know was that the person he was obsessed with finding out about was currently causing a storm in the office. By the end of the first period, I had already finished 3 sets of exam papers. The teachers took the papers and immediately began grading them. First was the math paper. As one red check mark after another slid across the page, the expressions of the grading teachers shifted from surprise to shock. By the time they finished grading, they exchanged glances, seeing disbelief in each other's eyes. A perfect score of 151 had to realize that the highest score on this exam had only been 140. What was even more jaw-dropping was that I had not paused even for a moment while doing the problems, as if the answers were already perfectly clear to me. Section Chief Hao's hand holding the paper was trembling. This was absolutely a genius. Following that, the results for the other 2 subjects came out. Another 2 perfect scores. At this moment, the commotion in the office attracted all the teachers. Mr. Wang, the head teacher of the rocket class, who had just finished his class, also rushed over upon hearing the news. When he learned that his class was about to welcome a genius, he smiled from ear to ear. But when he saw my appearance, he covered his mouth in astonishment. The young man sat quietly, head bowed as he solved the problems, the surrounding noise seemingly isolated from me. My focused expression and the fluid way my pen moved across the paper all exuded an indescribable elegance. Mr. Wang's gaze was instantly captivated. In a trance, he felt as if he were seeing a prince who had walked out of a fairy tale. Meanwhile, during the break, a post on the school forum was quietly ignited. "Holy crap!" An exclamation broke the silence of the hallway. Curious students clicked on the post, one after another, followed by bursts of "Holy crap!" The photo in the post of the young man walking in the sunlight was so handsome it looked dreamlike, shocking everyone who saw it. Found him! The male god is the transfer student who just joined the 3rd year today. He's taking his exams in the senior office right now, someone shouted in the hallway. Before the words were even finished, students who had seen the post flocked toward the office in unison. Instantly, the area was surrounded, packed wall to wall. Everyone wanted to catch a glimpse of the male god's true appearance. Yuki Eto was squeezed outside the crowd, trying to squeeze in several times, only to be pushed back out. Gazing at the dense wall of people, her face darkened like a pot. Back in the classroom, Daito Tengu looked at the excited classmates with a blank expression. He hurriedly grabbed a classmate and asked, anxiously, "What's going on? Did some celebrity come?" The classmate explained excitedly and incoherently. "Just look at the forum yourself and you'll know. I'm telling you, he's incredibly handsome." Daito Tengu pulled out his phone and clicked on the forum. He saw dozens of top pinned posts, each followed by a bright red HOT tag. He clicked on the very first one, and when he saw the photo, his gaze instantly became dull. He finally understood why everyone's reaction was so intense. The young man in the photo was so handsome he didn't look real. A sense of panic gripped his heart. If a figure like this were to transfer to their school, wouldn't everyone's focus? Daito Tengu's mind instantly flashed with images of Yuki Eto and Kyoha Shimizu. He desperately comforted himself. No, they aren't the kind of people who only care about looks. They like me. They would never change their heart so easily. Just then, the noisy sounds in the hallway finally alerted the teachers. The dean frowned and walked out. "What are you all huddled here for? Trying to rebel? Get back to your classrooms right now." He swept his gaze over the unwilling crowd and added, "Anyone who doesn't leave will have to run 10 laps around the track during the next period." Under the dean's authority, the students had to scatter in a hurry. The world outside had turned upside down, but in the office I remained as if nothing happened, still calmly navigating through the exam papers. This composure and grand atmosphere made the observing teachers appreciate me even more, as if I were a genius born for exams. The 10-minute break passed in a flash, and the bell for class rang. Unable to see the person she wanted to see, Yuki Eto walked back to the classroom in silence. However, this demeanor of Yuki Eto was taken in by Daito Tengu. Her complexion sank. Did Yuki Eto also go to sneak a look at that boy just now? Once this thought arose, she felt a nameless rage rush to the top of her head. She gripped her pen so hard that she left an eyesore ink stain on her textbook. Halfway through the period, having swept through 6 sets of exam papers, I put down my pen and let out a long sigh of relief. Even with the essay portion left blank, my grades were enough to wash away the competition in the rocket class. Mr. Lai witnessed the whole thing from the side, his inner excitement simply beyond words. After confirming that the grades met the standard, Mr. Lee held my hand tightly. "Student Akira Go, from now on, I am your head teacher. Now that you're in our class, the teacher guarantees to protect you." I nodded obediently, the corners of my lips curling slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Lai." Looking at my handsome appearance, Mr. Lee's heart skipped a beat. He even wanted to drag me home to be a piece of artwork. Immediately afterward, Mr. Lai led me straight to the rocket class. Mr. Lai was in an exceptionally pleasant mood along the way. He even forcefully interrupted the English teacher who was currently teaching. "Mr. Wang, I need to take a few minutes to announce something." The English teacher resignedly stepped away from the podium. Mr. Lai's expression was solemn. "Today, our class will have a transfer student." As soon as these words were spoken, the students of the rocket class looked at each other, a stormy sea instantly rising in their hearts. Could it be that male god who broke the forum? Is he really going to parachute into our class? Everyone looked excited, and the classroom was filled with discussion. Mr. Lai frowned and slammed the podium. "What's the shouting for? Other classes are still in session. Have some rocket class dignity." Once the whole place went silent, Mr. Lai nodded with satisfaction. Then he turned to look at the door. "Student Go, come in!" Instantly, everyone's gaze locked onto the door. The next second, I walked slowly into the classroom. The visual impact coming head-on was 100 times more powerful than in the photo. It was simply like Hercules descending upon the human world. I only needed to sweep my gaze across the room to instantly shatter everyone's defenses. At this moment, all the students in the class, regardless of gender, fell into the thrall of my beauty. My smile was like warm sunshine in winter, instantly softening the atmosphere. "Hello everyone, my name is Akira Go. I just returned from France. Please treat me well." The voice was deep and powerful, like music from heaven. As soon as the words fell, Daito Tengu's hand shook violently, and his pen fell onto the desk with a thud. Daito Tengu's face was deathly pale. He felt as though he were falling into an endless abyss. How is this possible? That Kyoha Shimizu's fiancé, Akira Go, actually grew up to look so imposing? He gripped his fists deathly tight, his body trembling uncontrollably. If Kyoha Shimizu were here, she would probably have already hugged him in her arms in distress. But this group of top students in the rocket class didn't buy that act at all. Usually, Kyoha Shimizu being clingy here or ordering classmates to run errands was already enough to make people feel annoyed. Who didn't know about the sordid story between Daito Tengu and Kyoha Shimizu? And I, as Kyoha Shimizu's fiancé, was also famous. Now that the actual partner had suddenly appeared, the whole class couldn't help but go crazy comparing the two. Kyoha Shimizu must be blind to have chosen Daito Tengu. The strange gazes made Daito Tengu feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. He looked at Yuki Eto with red eyes, seeking help, only to find that the other person was staring at me fixedly, her soul hooked away. Daito Tengu could no longer tolerate this contrast. He slumped onto his desk and burst into tears. Mr. Lai frowned, filled with disgust in his heart. At this moment, I looked at the sobbing Daito Tengu and sighed slightly, my voice low. In order to be able to go to school normally in the future, I would like to clarify one thing here. Upon hearing this, the whole class held their breath. My gaze was cold. I know everyone is talking about the engagement I have had with Kyoha Shimizu since I was little, but that was just a joke between our elders. I shifted my tone, speaking decisively. The year I turned 3, I went abroad. Kyoha Shimizu and I do not know each other at all and have no feelings for each other. Last night, I already formally ended the engagement with her. As soon as these words were out, there was an uproar in the hall. Before anyone could react, I threw out another bombshell. As for the matter between student Daito Tengu and Kyoha Shimizu, I sincerely blessed them. I looked at the crying Daito Tengu with a sincere gaze. Tengu is a good man. They truly love each other and shouldn't have been constrained by an inexplicable engagement anyway. So please, everyone, join me in blessing them. Thank you. After saying this, everyone's impression of me was instantly overturned. The male god is not only handsome but also kind-hearted, and his character is simply top tier. Everyone thought about how they had originally bet on me and felt a bit ashamed. How could they do such a thing? Clearly, Akira Go was also a victim. Yuki Eto's eyes glowed with a faint light. He ended the engagement. Does that mean he has a chance? Although Daito Tengu was crying, his ears were perked up high. What? They ended the engagement last night? But why didn't Kyoha Shimizu mention a single word to him? My words sounded like they were considering his feelings at every turn, but in his heart, it felt like a thorn had been driven in. It was like I was a high and mighty king who had casually discarded a piece of trash and was still forcing you to be grateful to me. This realization made Daito Tengu unable to be happy at all. Besides, can an engagement between two families be ended just by saying so? He is deliberately acting to win favor. This man's scheming is not that simple. Just as his thoughts were racing, my gaze landed gently on him. Student Tengu, don't cry. A boy's tears are very precious. The slumped Daito Tengu stiffened, hurriedly sitting straight, and squeezed out a smile. I'm fine, just that my eyes hurt a bit. The classmate behind him laughed out loud. What are you pretending for? You got the advantage and are still acting coy. The person just arrived and hasn't done anything, yet he is here crying and wailing as if someone bullied him. Daito Tengu gripped his fists, forcibly suppressing this breath. It doesn't matter. They are just a bunch of wall-flowered opportunists. As long as Kyoha Shimizu is his, he will eventually become Mrs. Shimizu. Just then, Mr. Lee had new desks and chairs and new books brought in. The rocket class temporarily became 51 people, which also meant that the next monthly exam would eliminate the last place. Everyone's heart tightened instantly. No one wanted to be eliminated and leave the male god's class. Mr. Lee swept his gaze around, fretting over where to arrange me so I wouldn't be affected by others' studies. Unexpectedly, I took the initiative. "Teacher, I'll sit in the back row by myself." Just then, Yuki Eto stood up abruptly. "Teacher, let me sit in the back with student Go. We live together, which makes it convenient for us to exchange studies." As soon as these words were spoken, the people around glared at her angrily. "Don't think we don't know what you are thinking in your heart." Many people silently clenched their fists. But before Mr. Lai could speak, I directly refused. "Yuki Eto, I want to sit alone." This direct refusal made Yuki Eto's complexion turn pale instantly. Yuki Ito twitched the corners of her mouth and could only manage to force out a single word. "Okay." She sat down, dejected, her whole body radiating the frustration of being rejected. And this scene was seen by Daito Tengu, becoming the most eyesore sight. Daito Tengu let out a cold snort next to him, his nails digging deep into his palms, even leaving deep marks. At this moment, she finally saw clearly that Yuki Eto's heart had completely leaned toward me. So all the loss of soul Yuki Eto felt in the last period was all because of Akira Go. Everything about treating her well for a lifetime is all bull. Then, Mr. Lee walked back onto the podium and said with a solemn expression, "I know everyone likes beautiful things, but now we are in our 3rd year of high school, and everyone's mind must be focused on studying. Don't think that just because you've entered the rocket class you can rest easy. There is always someone better, and mountains beyond mountains." Immediately after, Mr. Lai publicly announced my enrollment scores. Student Akira Go received full marks in every subject, except for the Chinese composition, which was left blank. As soon as these words were spoken, a gasp of cold air rippled through the classroom. All full marks, not only extremely handsome, but his studies are also this heaven-defying? Hearing these scores, Daito Tengu's complexion instantly turned gloomy. He couldn't even maintain his forced, smiling facade anymore. To make matters worse, Mr. Lai wasn't finished and continued with a cold warning. Anyone who dares to harbor crooked thoughts towards student Go should first weigh how much they're actually worth. Furthermore, Akira Go is now one of our class members. If students from other classes dare to come and harass him, you all know what to do, right? Upon hearing this, the whole class was filled with righteous indignation, vowing to protect the male god and resolutely not let students from other classes bully him. Mr. Lai nodded with satisfaction, dropped the harsh warning, and turned to leave. The English teacher then walked up to the podium and resumed class. In the blink of an eye, the end of class bell rang. The news of Kiyoha Shimizu and me breaking off our engagements spread through every corner of the campus like wildfire. Everyone was suddenly startled to realize that the new top male god was not only from the Go family, but was now actually single as well. Looking at the messages on her smartphone, Koharu Lin's lips couldn't stop curving upward. Without the slightest hesitation, she immediately sent me a message. "Akira, what would you like to eat for lunch today? I can have the cafeteria prepare it in advance." However, before she could receive a reply, the smartphone in her hand was abruptly snatched away by her close friend, Shinji Eto. Shinji Eto read out the words on the screen in a weird tone. "Akira, what do you want to eat today?" Koharu Lin's expression shifted slightly, and she snatched her phone right back. She glared fiercely at her. "Don't touch my phone!" Shinji Eto crossed her arms, staring at her with a mischievous smile, and said, "When did you guys add each other online? Have you met before?" Koharu Lin sighed helplessly. "We just ran into each other at the school gate this morning. Now that he and Kiyoha Shimizu have called off their engagement, it's totally normal for me to want to make friends with him." Shinji Eto patted her shoulder, reminding her, "This is your best friend's former fiancé. Are you really not afraid of Kiyoha's shadow coming after you if you chase him?" Koharu Lin's gaze turned cold. "Kiyoha's shadow or not, so what? She can pursue free romance, but I can't." Shinji Eto put away her smile, her tone turning serious. "Bestie, Akira really is breathtakingly handsome. But this kind of man can also be a thorny stone rose. Don't fall in too deep and end up getting hurt." Koharu Lin averted Shinji Eto's gaze. "Thanks, but I know what I'm doing." Realizing she couldn't persuade her, Shinji Eto returned to her relaxed demeanor and casually demanded that Koharu Lin bring her along for lunch, or else she would go snitch to Kiyoha Shimizu. Left with no choice, Koharu Lin glared at her and gritted her teeth in agreement. At noon, outside the cafeteria entrance, what was supposed to be a date for two, ended up with Nenego and Yuki Eto closely following behind me. When both sides collided, the atmosphere instantly plunged into an eerie silence. "So, you don't mind that I brought them along, do you?" Koharu Lin forced a smile. "Of course I don't mind. The more the merrier. Aren't we all friends?" At this moment, Shinji Eto stepped forward proactively, smiling as she introduced herself. "Hello, my name is Shinji Eto." Then she arched an eyebrow, her tone light and breezy. "May, oh God, you wouldn't mind adding one more to the table, right?" I smiled in response. "Of course not. You can just call me Akira from now on." However, this meal could only be described as reeking of gunpowder. Nenego and Yuki Eto, who usually couldn't stand the sight of each other, unexpectedly united on this rare occasion, staring fixedly at the two women across the table. Only I maintained a calm expression, eating with elegance. Yuki Eto coldly eyed Koharu Lin and Shinji Eto across the table. On the surface, one was a smiling tiger and the other a gentle blade. Back then, because of Daito Tengu, they had countless times mocked me in public, convinced that I was a shameless freeloader clinging to Kiyoha Shimizu. No matter how much I tried to curry favor, in their eyes, Kiyoha Shimizu's legitimate boyfriend would always be Daito Tengu and no one else. Birds of a feather flocked together. Essentially, they and Kiyoha Shimizu were cut from the same cloth. The corners of my lips bore a saintly, detached smile, making me look like an untouchable angel. But what was being calculated deep inside my heart remained completely unknown. At this moment, Koharu Lin's gaze was filled with obsession and longing. Even Shinji Eto, who usually favored muscular men, sat there with a gloomy expression, her dark gaze terrifyingly intense. Seeing so many women coveting me, her internal possessiveness practically exploded, and she wished she could hide me away right this instant. Meanwhile, a luxury car sped up and screeched to a halt at the school gate. Kiyoha Shimizu stepped out of the car looking utterly irritated. She had wanted to skip school, but her mother, Shoko Chang, had firmly forced her back to campus. Shoko Chang had even dropped a harsh ultimatum. If her rank didn't improve by 50 places on the next exam, her allowance would be cut off. Kiyoha Shimizu knew in her heart that this must be the result of the provocation from Akira Go breaking off their engagement. Sooner or later, she was going to settle this score with that man. Kiyoha Shimizu strode into the classroom and discovered that neither Koharu Lin nor Shinji Eto was present. So, feeling quite pleased with herself, she dialed Daito Tengu's phone, imagining how excited he would become upon hearing that she had broken off the engagement. To her surprise, as soon as the call connected, tearful sobbing came through from the other end. "Kiyoha, I'm on the rooftop." Her heart tightened, and she hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" Daito Tengu whimpered on the phone, while Kanawang shouted furiously in the background, "Kiyoha Shimizu, your boyfriend is about to be bullied to death. Why aren't you hurrying over here?" With a livid expression, Kiyoha Shimizu abruptly hung up the phone and headed straight for the rooftop. Upon reaching the rooftop, she saw Daito Tengu crying pear blossoms in the rain in Kanawang's arms, looking utterly pitiful. Heartburning with anxiety, Kiyoha Shimizu helped him up and repeatedly demanded to know who had done this. Daito Tengu shook his head continuously, biting his lower lip and refusing to speak. Kanawang couldn't stand it anymore and bluntly exposed the truth. "Who else could it be? It's that good fiancé of yours, Akira Go. Not only did he transfer to our class, but he also publicly announced the breakup of the engagement. Now the whole school is cursing Tengu out as a scheming man and calling him a shameless homewrecker." Hearing this, Kiyoha Shimizu clenched both fists tightly, her brow furrowing as she looked at Tengu. "Tengu, is what he said true?" Daito Tengu cried even more aggrievedly, sighing and lamenting that he indeed couldn't compare to Akira Go, who was a young master from a wealthy family. Hearing these words, Kiyoha Shimizu's anger instantly shattered her reason. "What a good Akira Go!" she roared furiously. Akira, go! You just wait. With that, Kyoha Shimizu bolted straight out of the rooftop, intent on seeking justice for Daito Tengu. Don't go, Kyoha! Daito Tengu feigned an attempt to hold her back from behind. Watching her rush off into the distance, a smug smile of success crept up the corners of his mouth. What a brilliant borrowed knife strategy. He wanted to spark a direct conflict between Kyoha Shimizu and me. If she ever dared to lay a hand on me, given my attitude, there would be zero possibility between us ever again. That way, even if Kyoha Shimizu was momentarily mesmerized by good looks, she would ultimately still belong to him, Daito Tengu. Then, he grabbed Kanawang's hand and feigned deep anxiety. Let's hurry up and chase after them. Don't let Kyoha do anything foolish. He simply had to witness this good show with his own eyes to feel at ease. On the other side, a furious Kyoha Shimizu stormed into the rocket class, only to find it empty. She grabbed a random classmate and demanded, "Where is Akira go?" To her surprise, the other person looked at her with extreme vigilance. "Kyoha Shimizu, the male god has already broken off your engagement. Why are you still trying to pester him?" Kyoha Shimizu was driven out of her mind on the spot. "I'm pestering him? What kind of brainwashing soup did this scumbag feed these people?" The next second, students from the entire rocket class crowded around, every single one of them glaring at her with hostile eyes. Kyoha Shimizu laughed in utter disbelief. This bunch of bookworms is actually taking a stand against me over a newly transferred boy? Just then, a burst of exclamations suddenly erupted from outside the door. "Wow! The male god is coming out! He's seriously so handsome!" The corners of Kyoha Shimizu's mouth twitched into a sneer. "HMPH finally caught you." She immediately rushed out of the classroom, catching sight of a tall, well-proportioned back figure. Kyoha Shimizu sneered disdainfully. "Just putting on a show. Watch how this lady deals with you." She charged forward like an angry mother bull, with the screams of alarmed classmates echoing behind her. "Male god! Watch out!" Hearing the commotion, I turned my head back. In that exact fraction of a second, that peerlessly handsome face entered Kyoha Shimizu's field of vision. He froze entirely in place. He wanted to stop, but his momentum made it completely impossible to break. Inertia carried him forward, slamming him fiercely into me. With a single cry of shock, I was sent flying a meter away, crashing hard onto the ground. And this exact scene was taken in entirely by Daito Tengu from afar. "Ha ha ha ha! Serves you right. Let's see how you act all high and mighty now." Daito Tengu's gloating laughter pierced the air. Yet Kanawang beside him was so startled she released her grip, her malicious expression looking like a completely different person compared to her pitiful act just moments ago. Kanawang instantly realized she had been used as a pawn. Meanwhile, surrounding gasps of alarm rose wave upon wave. "Big brother, male god!" Everyone quickly gathered around, carefully and gingerly helping me up. My thick eyebrows knitted tightly together as I trembled and spat out two words. "So painful." That pitiful appearance instantly ignited the rage of everyone present. They felt heartache to an unimaginable degree, yet they didn't dare to crowd too close to this perfect male god. Instead, they directed their collective spearhead straight at the culprit, Kyoha Shimizu. Right at that moment, Yuki Ito stepped forward decisively, scooped me up into her arms and said, "Akira, you're hurt. I'm taking you to the hospital right now." With that, she supported me and turned to leave, leaving behind a resolute back. Kyoha Shimizu stood dumbfounded like a wooden chicken, watching helplessly as I was carried away by another woman. Only then did she snap out of it like waking from a dream, wanting to chase after us. "I'm sorry, it was all my fault." However, an iron fist blocked her path. It was Koharu Lin. With fire in her eyes, she threw punch after punch, striking Kyoha Shimizu fiercely across the face. At that moment, Daito Tengu screamed and charged over, spreading his arms to shield Kyoha Shimizu. "Koharu Lin, have you lost your mind? She's your best friend." "Best friend?" Koharu Lin sneered, shook out her hand, and dropped a cold ultimatum. "If anything happens to Akira, I will never let you off the hook." Having said that, she left without even looking back. Shinji Eto also sighed. her eyes full of disappointment. "Kyoha, you'd better take care of yourself." The once unbreakable trio instantly disintegrated. Daito Tengu never expected that, for the sake of a guy they had just met, a decade-long friendship would be discarded just like that, without a second thought. With a heart full of heartache, she caressed Kyoha Shimizu's face. "Kyoha, you still have me." But Kyoha Shimizu's mind was entirely filled with the painful expression I wore when I fell. Kyoha Shimizu abruptly shoved Daito Tengu's hand away, stood up with a start, and said, "No, I have to go to the hospital to see him." Daito Tengu's expression nearly collapsed on the spot. She bit down hard on her back molars, forcing out an expression of concern. "Kyoha, you're hurt too. Go to the infirmary first. Koharu and the others are over at Student Go's side. It won't be too late for you to go see him after school." Looking at her worried face, Kyoha Shimizu ultimately nodded in agreement. On the other side, at the hospital, the doctor pushed up his glasses. "Not a major issue, a minor fracture. Put a cast on it and rest for a few days, and it'll be fine." Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. But Yuki Ito immediately followed up by asking, "Dr. Chen, does this situation require hospitalization?" Her face was full of anxiety as her voice pitched higher. Dr. Chen pushed up his glasses and said, "Hospitalization or going home are both fine, but I recommend staying in the hospital to avoid secondary collisions that could worsen the injury." As soon as those words came out, before I even had a chance to speak, everyone behind me rushed into the private ward. As long as it meant the male gods suffered less, money was completely out of the question. I sighed helplessly. "You guys are worrying too much. The doctor already said I'm fine." "How can this be?" Nenego immediately retorted. "How can a fracture not hurt? Big brother, just listen to us and rest in peace. Leave the rest to us." Left with no choice, I nodded in compromise. After everything was settled, I urged everyone to head back to school for class. Nini Go placed her hands on her hips, blocking the doorway, and sneered at the surrounding girls. "What are you stinky girls trying to stay behind for? Trying to take advantage of my big brother? With me, his little sibling, here, that's enough. You guys hurry back to school." Trying to use this opportunity to build a relationship with my big brother? In your dreams! Yet Yuki Eto and the others looked at each other, and not a single one of them was willing to leave first. Seeing this scene, I injected a hint of sternness into my tone. "None of you are listening to me? Do you want to make me angry?" Seeing that I was genuinely about to lose my temper, everyone had no choice but to leave obediently. Once peace was restored in the hospital room, I leisurely leaned against the head of the bed to read a book. Suddenly, the voice of the system spirit Dango rang out in my mind with deep heartache. "Chen, when Kyoha Shimizu charged into you, you clearly could have dodged. Why did you intentionally take that hit head-on? It must hurt so much." However, I curved the corners of my lips into a playful, knowing smile. "Silly Dango, I have system pain relief medicine. Why would it hurt? Besides, this injury was well worth taking. This injury was nothing more than the very first piece of bait I cast out." Sure enough, the next second, the ward door was pushed open forcefully. Tsukasa Shimizu stood panting at the doorway. Clearly, she had rushed straight over from the corporate office. "Chen, how are you? How did you suddenly get a fracture?" Tsukasa Shimizu strode in full of anxious panic right up to the bedside. I naturally set down the book in my hand, making that already pale little face look even more delicate and pitiful. "Big sis Tsukasa, why are you here?" "I'm fine, just need to rest for a few days." Tsukasa Shimizu grabbed my hand tightly, a flash of violent, chilling frost cutting deep within her dark pupils. Her voice dropped low. "Chen, did someone bully you?" I averted my gaze and remained silent. This aggrieved yet fiercely enduring appearance instantly solidified Tsukasa Shimizu's suspicions. Was it that wench Kyoha Shimizu? Tsukasa Shimizu's expression turned chillingly terrifying. She knew this younger sister of hers all too well. Vain, extreme, and very likely to retaliate after having her engagement broken off. I hurriedly shook my head and pleaded, "Big sis Tsukasa, I'm really fine. Please don't ask anymore." Seeing me act so kind and enduring, Tsukasa Shimizu's heart ached beyond measure. Since she herself was too soft-hearted and couldn't bear to take action, she would play the role of the executioner and clear away every single obstacle for me. Tsukasa Shimizu stopped pushing and instead thoughtfully began telling jokes. This afternoon spent in her company brought our relationship to an extreme closeness. To her surprise, Madame Go suddenly pushed the door open, her eyes instantly locking onto me and Tsukasa Shimizu chatting and laughing together. In that instant, she actually had the illusion of being doubly betrayed. I smiled and greeted her. "First aunt, you're here." Madame Go walked to the bedside looking full of heartache, cupped my little face, and let out a heavy sigh. "Chen-Chen, look at you. This little face of yours has lost a whole circle of weight." Immediately afterward, Madame Go turned her gaze to Tsukasa Shimizu, her eyes filled with intense scrutiny. "And this is—" "Madame Go, hello. I am Tsukasa Shimizu, daughter of Nan Shimizu." Tsukasa Shimizu stood up immediately, her expression solemn. "Shimizu's girl?" Madame Go's brow locked tightly together, her complexion turning gloomy instantly. "I heard from Nene that Chen-Chen's fracture was caused by Kyoha Shimizu pushing him? Kyoha is still Chen-Chen's fiancé, yet she pulls such a vicious trick? Does she really think our Go family is easy to bully? I'm telling you, this matter is far from over." Tsukasa Shimizu lowered her gaze and stood in place, obediently taking the scolding without a single word of rebuttal. "Yes, it's all our fault. I will definitely give Chen-Chen an explanation." I hurriedly grabbed First Aunt's hand and said, "First Aunt, don't be angry. I forgot to tell you. Yesterday I already called off the engagement. Kyoha Shimizu has nothing to do with me anymore." Madame Go froze for a full second, then suddenly clapped her hands. "Well broken off. That kind of trash is simply unworthy of our Chen-Chen. Don't worry, Auntie will definitely find you someone much better than her in the future." "First Aunt, what are you saying? I'm still young." My cheeks flushed slightly, my gaze drifting casually toward Tsukasa Shimizu. That single glance made Tsukasa Shimizu's throat tighten, throwing her breathing completely out of rhythm. Madame Go, however, guarded me like a thief, staring at Tsukasa Shimizu with an unkind gaze. "Since it has nothing to do with you anymore, what are you still staying here for?" I hurried to explain. "Big Sis Tsukasa is my friend. She came here specifically to visit me. She's a good person and completely different from Kyoha Shimizu." Madame Go's brow furrowed even deeper, looking at Tsukasa Shimizu as if eyeing a big-tailed wolf trying to abduct a little white rabbit. But with me present, she managed to hold back from directly kicking her out. "Chen-Chen, hurry and taste the pork rib soup First Aunt simmered all afternoon." When the thermos jar was opened, the rich, meaty aroma instantly filled the entire hospital room, making one's mouth water. I drank the soup in small sips, my eyes brimming with happiness. Madame Go and Tsukasa Shimizu both looked at my satisfied little expressions, the corners of their mouths involuntarily curling upward. Right at that moment, the ward door was pushed open violently. Shoko-chiang walked in, dragging Kyoha Shimizu along with her. At this point, what remaining trace of a smiling flower did Kyoha Shimizu have left? Her whole face was bruised and battered, swollen like a pig's head, looking utterly and ridiculously comical. Seeing this scene, the corners of my mouth couldn't help but go wild, and I almost failed to hold back a laugh. "What is the meaning of this?" Madame Go asked with an expression of astonishment. Shoko-chiang swung her hand back and delivered a fierce slap across Kyoha Shimizu's back, shouting sternly, "Hurry up and get on your knees to apologize to Akira." Kyoha Shimizu kept her head down, shuffling over to the side of my bed. When she raised her head to meet my stunningly gorgeous little face, a wave of overwhelming, crushing regret surged up within her heart. If she had realized earlier that I looked this refined and alluring, she would have had to be out of her mind to break off the engagement. "Akira, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me." I lifted my cool, clear chin. My voice sounded as pleasant as wind chimes, yet it was cold without a trace of warmth. "I forgive you." Just as Shoko-chiang and Kyoha Shimizu were about to show ecstatic joy, my tone abruptly shifted. "However, please, student Shimizu, roll out of my life from now on. If we run into each other at school, just treat it like we've never met. That'll be best for everyone." This wasn't forgiveness at all. It was clearly a declaration of drawing a complete and utter line. Kyoha Shimizu's smile froze instantly as she was about to start begging. Koharu Lin suddenly stepped forward, putting herself in front of me, her voice icy. That's enough, Kyoha. Akira is magnanimous and doesn't hold grudges, so don't push your luck. Shoko-chan immediately bristled, pointing at Koharu Lin with a threatening glare. Koharu, she is your biological sister. Is that any way to talk to your older sister? Who would have thought that Koharu Lin would completely break from her usual behavior, pointing right back at her with a chilling edge to her lips? Madam Chung, given our current relationship, you're hardly qualified to give me orders. Those words made Shoko-chan tremble with rage. Fine, just fine. Do you even still want to acknowledge me as your mother? Koharu Lin remained silent, but that non-committal gaze spoke volumes. Shoko-chan offered a cold laugh, then turned back to me with an entirely different expression, her tone softening into honeyed words. Akira, dear, this whole mess is our fault. For the sake of the friendship between your mother and me, please just forgive Kyoha. Standing out in the hallway, Daito Tengu listened as the older woman, who used to treat him like garbage and humiliate him at every turn, was now acting completely fawning toward me. A blazing fury instantly flushed his eyes red. No way! She absolutely cannot be allowed to forgive Kyoha Shimizu! The next second, he violently shoved the door open and rushed into the hospital room like a madman. With a heavy thud, Daito Tengu dropped straight to his knees right in front of me. Tears streamed down his face as he cried in heart-wrenching agony. Akira-kun, please forgive Kyoha! Everything she did was just because of me. If you want to blame someone, blame me instead. Dead silence filled the hospital ward, with only Daito Tengu's miserable, shattering sobs echoing off the walls. Both Kyoha Shimizu and Shoko-chan were startled out of their wits by this sudden turn of events. Their eyes went wide as saucers, staring in utter astonishment at Daito Tengu kneeling on the floor. Why on earth did he suddenly show up here? Didn't they already agree beforehand that she wouldn't let him come along? Originally, Daito Tengu had insisted on accompanying them to apologize to Akira Go, but both Shoko-chan and Kyoha Shimizu had felt that wasn't quite appropriate. After all, the two families had just broken off their engagement, and if he tagged along like this, it would only complicate matters further. Little did they know, he had secretly followed them anyway. Furthermore, he was standing right here running his mouth and saying things that made zero sense. What did he mean by saying it was all for Kyoha Shimizu? Wasn't that just blatantly hinting that Kyoha Shimizu was head over heels in love with him, and that she was willing to go so far as to hurt Akira Go for his sake? Madame Go trembled with rage, her face turning ashen as she pointed straight at Daito Tengu and snapped, "Well, well! No wonder Chen suddenly wanted to break off your family's engagement. So you people had already betrayed the pact and were out here philandering with a homewrecker all along. Shoko-chan, how on earth do you have the unmitigated gall to ask my Chen to forgive you people or to ask Kyoha to look after him? I spit on the lot of you. Everyone from the Shimizu family, get the hell out of here right now." Looking thoroughly embarrassed, Shoko-chan took a step forward and tried to appease her. Madam Go, this is just a misunderstanding. They're just kids playing house. They aren't actually together. Right, Kyoha? Tell her. With that, she shot a sharp glance at Kyoha Shimizu, signaling her to back her up immediately. Yet Kyoha Shimizu was currently seething with anger over Daito Tengu's abrupt and reckless intrusion. Originally, she had taken a liking to Daito Tengu precisely because of his pure, kind-hearted demeanor and his seemingly unyielding stance against power and wealth. But after getting beaten up earlier that day, both Yuki Eto and Shinji Eto had come looking for her. After comparing notes with the three of them, Kyoha Shimizu finally realized that she had genuinely misunderstood me. She also suddenly woke up to the fact that it was Daito Tengu who had kept crying and whispering that I was bullying him, which had provoked her into flying off the handle. Was Daito Tengu seriously treating her like his personal weapon? Even so, Kyoha Shimizu hadn't completely given up on Daito Tengu, perhaps because he was just too terrified of losing her, which made him run his mouth without thinking. But she had explicitly told Daito Tengu not to come to the hospital. Yet behind her back, he had followed them anyway, burst straight into the room and run his mouth like that. The rose-tinted glasses Kyoha Shimizu had worn for Daito Tengu were now shattered into a million pieces. What pure, innocent boy. His manipulation tactics were smoother and dirtier than her own. Consequently, Kyoha Shimizu completely ignored Daito Tengu's pleading gaze, and instead turned back to me with a deeply emotional look, saying, "Right, Daito-kun and I." In. The next second, I deliberately turned my head away to look out the window, completely and utterly ignoring her. That cold snub made Kyoha Shimizu feel even more wretched, while Daito Tengu's body stiffened entirely, his eyes filled with absolute disbelief. How could she dismiss our relationship so cleanly and decisively? Does she really not care about my feelings at all? He let out a cold, cynical laugh in his heart. Women truly are fickle creatures swayed entirely by looks. Yet just when Kyoha Shimizu thought her little performance could salvage the situation, the battle-tested Madame Go saw right through the whole charade. How could she possibly be fooled by such a cheap trick? Madame Go suddenly started clapping, her face dripping with mockery. "Go on! Keep acting! Really, keep going! Do you really take us for absolute fools? My precious Chen Chen! My precious Chen Chen!" In the next second, Madame Go swept up the fruit basket the visitors had brought and hurled it right out the door. Shoko-chan's expression turned instantly ironclad. As a high-ranking power broker of the Shimizu Group, when had she ever suffered such humiliating disrespect? Right now, she felt as though both her dignity and pride had been trampled into the dirt, leaving her with no choice but to force out a stiff smile. "Very well, Madame Go. We'll take our leave at once. Chen Chen, get some good rest. I'll come back in a few days to properly offer my apologies." Having said her piece, Shoko-chan grabbed Kyoha Shimizu by the arm and spun around to leave. Daito Tengu shot me a vicious, venomous glare, gritting his teeth as he muttered under his breath, "Akira, go. Don't think you've won." Following right behind the other two, he hurried out of the hospital room as well. At that moment, Madame Go glanced at Koharu Lin, who was still standing by the door, and frowned. "What is it? Are you still reluctant to leave?" I quietly fluttered my eyelashes at Koharu Lin, flashing an innocent look. "Koharu-nichan, you must be exhausted after staying with me all afternoon. Head back and get some rest." Only then did Koharu Lin speak up. "Madame Go, I'm leaving, but I want you and Akira to know something. My mother and I are not on the same side as Shoko and Kyoha. Our relationship is complicated, but I will prove it to you in due time." Madame Go gave a slight flick of her chin, signaling her to make herself scarce. "Well then, Akira, I'm off. I'll come see you tomorrow." Goodbye, Koharu-nichan." Once she left, Madame Go immediately took hold of my hand, her eyes swimming with deep anxiety. "Akira, that Koharu may look pleasant enough on the surface, but she is still a Shimizu after all. You need to keep your guard up." In the blink of an eye, a week flew by, and I was finally discharged from the hospital. Little did I know, however, that my brief stay in the hospital had kicked off a massive, turbulent storm across the city. First was Koharu Lin, like a long-suppressed beast finally baring its fangs. Her grip and authority within the Shimizu Group grew increasingly absolute. Every single decision she made was decisive and ruthless, sending shivers down the spines of everyone who had once looked down on her. Shoko-chan was driven half-mad with fury, yet she found herself utterly powerless against her. She could only stand by and watch helplessly as Koharu Lin, standing within the corporate ladder, climbed higher and higher. Meanwhile, the social dynamics back at school were shifting just as dramatically. Kyoha Shimizu began intentionally and unintentionally distancing herself from Daito Tengu. Daito Tengu felt as though his heart was being gnawed on by 10,000 ants. He simply could not accept the harsh reality of being cast aside. So he ambushed Kyoha Shimizu time and time again, desperately trying to salvage things. To his shock, Kyoha Shimizu acted as though she couldn't even see him. Watching her cold, indifferent back as she walked away, his heart shattered into a million pieces. He could not for the life of him figure out how a bond that used to be so unbreakable could snap the moment it was touched. Running into a brick wall with Kyoha Shimizu left Daito Tengu feeling suffocated and aggrieved. So out of sheer habit, he instinctively sought out Yuki Ito. Looking aggrieved, she stepped forward and whined, "Yuki-chan, why are you suddenly treating me so coldly? We used to be so close." Yuki Ito frowned slightly, waiting a beat before coldly replying, "Tengu-kun, we've all grown up. Some things change, and it's about time you faced reality. In truth, any fondness she had ever shown Daito Tengu previously was nothing more than an older sister looking after a younger sibling. It wasn't until she met me that she finally understood what genuine romantic attraction felt like. It was a feeling that made your heart race and ache with longing, emotions she had never once experienced with Daito Tengu. Only at that moment did she fully realize that she had never truly loved Daito Tengu at all. Daito Tengu's eyes widened in shock as hot tears instantly welled up. "What do you mean we can't be like before? How can you just throw away so many years of friendship like this?" Yuki Eto let out a helpless sigh. "People change, Tengu-kun. I can't revolve around you forever. Besides, you and Kyoha." Hearing Kyoha Shimizu's name made Daito Tengu's expression darken even further. He interrupted her hysterically. "What about Kyoha and me? Is this because of Akira Go? Kyoha ignores me, and now you're ignoring me too. What on earth did I do wrong? Tell me." "Ah," he cried with a grievance-filled face. "Clearly Kyoha and I fell in love first, and I've known you much longer. Why does everyone only have eyes for Akira Go the moment he shows up? What am I supposed to do now? Yuki-chan, how can you be so cruel?" Daito Tengu's tears fell like broken beads. "I always thought our bond was the most precious thing in the world. I never thought you'd change your mind just like that." Watching him cry, a flicker of soft-hearted hesitation crossed Yuki Eto's mind. But she kept her wits sharp, knowing full well that if she went soft now, she and I would never stand a chance. With that thought, Yuki Eto hardened her heart. "Tengu-kun, this is a reality you have to face. Take good care of yourself." Without looking back, she turned on her heel and walked away. Staring at Yuki Ito's resolute back, Daito Tengu shouted in sheer desperation, "Yuki Eto, you're going to regret this." Yet Yuki Eto didn't pause for even a second, her silhouette gradually shrinking until she vanished from his sight. Daito Tengu clenched his fists so hard they cracked, a ferocious glint flashing in his eyes. "Akira! Go, you bastard! I'll make you pay for this. Since you're all being so ruthless, nobody gets a happy ending." Taking a deep breath, Daito Tengu hatched a venomous, twisted plan in his mind. He suddenly remembered Shinji Eto, the friend he used to suck up to just to stay close to Kyoha Shimizu. To his utter shock, even Shinji Ito had fallen for me. He had never seen Shinji Eto look as tense and nervous as she had the day I got injured. It didn't take long for Kyoha Shimizu to find out about Shinji Eto's feelings for me. Seething with rage, Kyoha Shimizu stormed right up to Shinji Ito and demanded, "Shinji, what the hell are you playing at? Why are you always hanging around Akira's side?" Shinji Eto merely gave a cool, detached shrug. "Isn't that normal?" Flames danced in Kyoha Shimizu's eyes. "My best friend? Don't think I don't know what's going on in your head. Your feelings for her are anything but friendly." Shinji Eto's gaze dipped for a second before steadying into calm indifference. "So what if my feelings are different? You didn't know how to cherish her, so why shouldn't someone else treat her well?" Those words pushed Kyoha Shimizu right over the edge. She took a fierce, aggressive step forward. "Shinji Eto, don't you dare cross the line. You're my best friend. Even if Akira and I broke off our engagement, I will never allow you to harbor unchaste thoughts toward her." Unfazed, Shinji Eto met her glare head-on, her voice unwavering. "Kyoha, you've already lost Akira, so stop making a fool of yourself. You didn't know how to appreciate her, but I will guard her my own way." Clenching her jaw until her face turned ashen, Kyoha Shimizu hissed, "Shinji Eto, don't get cocky. Akira and I aren't over yet. I will definitely make her come back to me." Shinji Eto let out a cold scoff. "You're far too arrogant, Kyoha. Akira is not your possession. She has her own mind, and she won't just come back because you snapped your fingers." Kyoha Shimizu's knuckles popped as she squeezed her fists. "Fine, I guess I misjudged you." With icy detachment, Shinji Eto said, "To think I actually considered you my best friend. From today on, we're through." Leaving behind a chilling warning, Kyoha Shimizu spat, "We'll see about that. I won't let you in." Just like that, two former best friends completely fell out over me. However, lurking in the shadows, Daito Tengu curled the corners of his lips in a sneer. Sisterly bonds, they shatter at the slightest touch. Meanwhile, poor Yuki Eto was caught right in the middle. torn, and agonizingly stressed. She tried to act as a peacemaker and mediate the conflict between Kiyoha Shimizu and Shinji Eto, but every attempt ended in utter failure. Yet whenever Shinji Eto went to visit me at the hospital, Yuki Eto would silently trail behind her like a shadow. Her heart was a tangled mess of contradiction and doubt. She couldn't even tell if what she was doing was right or wrong. She simply couldn't control her own feet, as if she were being pulled along by some invisible force. Inside a dimly lit lounge bar, Daito Tengu nervously scanned the room with a fluttering heart, searching for a familiar figure. Finally, tucked away in a corner booth, she spotted Kiyoha Shimi drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Sitting all alone with a table full of empty bottles, she radiated an aura of total defeat. Kiyoha. Daito Tengu called out softly. Seeing her glazed-over eyes, she knew she was completely plastered. Seizing the moment, she immediately dove straight into playing the victim on her behalf. I already heard what Shinji did. How could she betray you like that, especially after you were always so good to her? Sure enough, the moment the name Shinji left his lips, Kiyoha Shimizu instantly blew her top. Don't you ever mention her name to me again. That backstabbing bitch Shinji doesn't deserve to be my friend. Taking advantage of the alcohol-fueled opening, Daito Tengu immediately soothed her. Right, we won't talk about her. Kiyoha, can't we stop torturing each other like this? Can't we start over? Kiyoha Shimizu's lips parted, but no sound came out. Crucially, she didn't chase him away either. A surge of hope flared in Daito Tengu's chest. It meant she still had feelings for him. Pressing his advantage, he immediately pushed harder. Kiyoha, we loved each other so much back then. Have you really forgotten all those wonderful memories? Tears pooling in her eyes, she gently leaned against Daito Tengu's shoulder, her voice choking with suppressed sobs. I love you. I've always loved you. You've never changed. Seizing the moment, Daito Tengu delivered the final line. Kiyoha, at the end of the day, the only person who will ever stay by your side is me. Perhaps prompted by those final words, the heavy atmosphere in the air shifted. Tengu-kun, Kiyoha Shimizu finally murmured, her voice hoarse and low. I'm sorry. The moment the words left her mouth, Daito Tengu leaned in and kissed her passionately. To his surprise, Kiyoha Shimizu wrapped her arms tightly around him and kissed him back. Amidst the heavy embrace, they reconciled just like that. Afterward, as if needing to prove something to the world, Kiyoha Shimizu treated Daito Tengu even better than before, and the two of them went wild, flaunting their relationship all over campus. Not content with that, Daito Tengu even made sure to send intimate photos of the two of them straight to my phone while I was in the hospital. Big brother, Kiyoha and I are doing wonderfully together. Since you've already called off the engagement, you'd better stay away from her from now on. When I saw the photos, I nearly laughed out loud. People only brag about what they're desperately lacking. This stunt only proved one thing. Daito Tengu was utterly terrified that he couldn't keep a firm grip on Kiyoha Shimizu. Having just patched things up and feeling high on her own ego, Daito Tengu turned her sights back to Yuki Eto next. She dug out a bunch of nostalgic mementos from the past, arranged them neatly on a coffee table, and let her eyes well up with tears. Using a sweet, manipulative tone, she reminisced about the old days and promised she wouldn't bother her anymore. Sure enough, looking at the old keepsakes, Yuki Ito's heart softened instantly, and she made a promise on the spot. If you ever need anything in the future, I'll help you out one last time. Turning around, Daito Tengu let out a slow, triumphant smile. She had won her gamble again. Little did Daito Tengu know, however, that she wouldn't even get to enjoy her victory for long before an anonymous post blew up across the school forum. The title read, Shocking Truth. The real reason why male god Akira Go ended up in the hospital. The post detailed how Kiyoha Shimizu had attacked Akira Go in public, purely because her green tea boyfriend had wailed about being bullied. Blinded by her infatuation, Kiyoha Shimizu had charged straight over without checking the facts, resulting in Akira Go suffering a leg fracture and landing in the hospital. But the absolute killer part of the post was the irrefutable proof it provided. I had transferred that very morning, spent the entire time locked inside the rocket class without stepping foot out the door once, and every single student in the class could vouch for my alibi. I hadn't even spoken more than 2 words to Daito Tengu, let alone bullied him. The Post went on to viciously tear into the two scumbags, pointing out that not only had they faced zero disciplinary action, but they were still brazenly parading around the school flaunting their romance every single day. It was utterly shameless. The moment the Post dropped, it instantly detonated the entire school forum. While Meitoku Academy was a prestigious private institution that generally turned a blind eye to puppy love, the brazen antics of Kyoha Shimizu and Daito Tengu had completely crossed the line. The students of the rocket class filed a joint formal complaint directly to the administration, accusing the pair of publicly dating on school grounds and severely disrupting the studies of other students. This time, the school administration could no longer look the other way. They formally ordered the two of them to write self-criticisms and publicly read them aloud in front of the entire faculty and student body. Standing up there amidst waves of disdainful glares, Daito Tengu looked like he was about to burst into tears. In stark contrast, because Kyoha Shimizu felt an overwhelming sense of guilt toward me following their reconciliation, she overcompensated by shouting her lines extra loudly during the reading. After this humiliation, Daito Tengu became an absolute laughingstock around the campus. No matter where he went, students pointed fingers behind his back. Look, that's Daito Tengu right there. Him and Kyoha Shimizu. What a pair of toxic trash bags. They really deserve each other. Seriously. Compared to Akira Go, he's absolute garbage. He doesn't even measure up to a single hair on Akira's head. No kidding. Akira-kun is not only drop-dead gorgeous, but he's also kind and generous. And look at Daito Tengu. Who knew such a sweet face could hide such a rotten, malicious core? The whispers echoed through the hallways and followed him right into the classrooms. Those waves of mockery crashed over Daito Tengu, nearly choking the life out of him. Yet he still held onto a sliver of delusion, convincing himself that the person behind the forum post must have been me. Daito Tengu preferred to think of me as a vicious, cold-blooded schemer, at least believing that made him feel a little better inside. But to his absolute horror, the person who had stabbed him in the back turned out to be none other than his most trusted friend, Shinji Eto. Unable to accept the truth when he found out, he rushed straight to confront Shinji Eto in a fury. Seeing him dare to show his face, Shinji Eto simply offered a cold sneer. Did you really think I was still the same gullible fool you could manipulate whenever you pleased? You think you can just keep running your mouth and playing the victim while everyone else cleans up your messes? Wake up, Tengu. Everyone sees right through your pathetic little act now, and nobody is ever going to cover for you again. Staring at her icy, disdainful expression, Daito Tengu finally realized that his web of lies had completely collapsed around him. Originally, Daito Tengu was able to cling to high society young lady Xiao Lin solely because she had once saved her. Remembering that she had been played for a fool by such a man, Kotone felt as disgusted as if she had swallowed a fly. Since you refuse to show mercy, don't blame me for being unrighteous. Kotone simply decided to spill the details on the school forum, making the true face of Daito Tengu crystal clear to the entire school. As expected, wealthy folks are all the same, a bunch of ungrateful ingrates. Gritting his teeth in fury, Daito Tengu stormed off in a rage. As Daito Tengu walked home, the more he thought about it, the more resentful he felt. He gnashed his teeth as he muttered that name, his eyes brimming with venom. He swore that sooner or later he would stomp me firmly beneath his feet. Meanwhile, I was lounging comfortably in the hospital, listening to Dango's non-stop debriefing. Chen, I finally get it. You were already fully recovered, but you deliberately stayed another week just to watch them tear each other apart like stray dogs. I curved the corners of my lips, thinking to myself, this is human nature. Once interests are on the line, so-called friendship is nothing more than trash. Yet Dango remained puzzled. The mission to break off the engagement with Kyoha Shimizu is already complete. Why hasn't the crisis of the Go family going bankrupt been lifted yet? Could there be an even deeper conspiracy hidden behind the bankruptcy of the Go family? I let out a soft sigh, vocalizing that earth-shattering secret aloud. A titan enterprise like the Go Group could never be swallowed up by Kyoha Shimizu alone. Not only were the Doi and Ito families pulling strings and going all out behind the scenes, but the true mastermind pulling the strings was none other than Shoko-chan. On the surface, This woman played the part of a kindly, benevolent mother-in-law, but behind the scenes, she utilized the original host to extract massive amounts of intelligence using utterly despicable methods. Because of the engagement, the Go family lowered their guard completely, resulting in the Shimizu family bleeding them dry. Shoko Chiang even emerged as the ultimate winner. What was even more unexpected was that the school idol Daito Tengu, who always seemed solely focused on playing romance games, possessed ambitions that were terrifyingly huge. To marry into high society, he relied on Kyoha Shimizu's help to frantically poach core projects from the Shimizu family, using them to prove his own capabilities. Who would have believed that the once illustrious, noble Go family would ultimately end up reduced to a stepping stone for this pair of scumbags? After going through a vicious cycle of deceit and backstabbing, the Go family completely fell apart. Taking advantage of this, the Doi family leaped forward to become the supreme overlord. Daito Tengu got his wish and married Kyoha Shimizu, the two of them living happily ever after until old age. Yet, who would remember the tragic state of the Go family after their bankruptcy? Who would remember the desperate original host who took her own life? On the way home, the more I thought about it, the more fired up I got. After all, I had always been the most dazzling presence at Meitoku Academy. I glanced at an ancient tree by the roadside, even though it had grown into a towering giant, with lush branches and leaves. It still only took a single saw to cut that massive tree right down at the waist. After returning to school, Kyoha Shimizu and Daito Tengu were forced by the pressure of public opinion to apologize to me in person. Kyoha Shimizu's eyes were filled with remorse, while Daito Tengu looked utterly unwilling. Looking at them, I merely offered a faint smile. It's fine, it's all in the past, we're in our final year now, so we still need to focus on our studies. As soon as those words left my mouth, the surrounding onlookers once again marveled at how handsome and kind-hearted the male god was. Looking back at Daito Tengu, he looked like a shameless, malicious contrast piece. Daito Tengu was practically grinding his teeth to dust thinking, this guy is obviously just putting on a generous act to humiliate me on purpose. Meanwhile, Kyoha Shimizu, standing beside him, experienced a complex storm of emotions. She felt as though she had permanently lost the right to have me. Seeing Kyoha Shimizu's dazed expression, Daito Tengu immediately grabbed her hand with a grievance-filled expression. Only then did Kyoha Shimizu snap out of it. I cannot fail Tengu again. Right then, I suddenly dropped a remark. Oh right, Tengu-kun. The photos of you and Kyoha Shimizu turned out pretty nice. But you don't need to send them to me every day. Save them for yourselves to admire from now on. At those words, the surrounding pointed glances instantly pierced into Daito Tengu like daggers. Who couldn't see right through his little green tea manipulative tricks by now? Daito Tengu's face turned crimson red in an instant. Kyoha Shimizu looked at him in sheer disbelief. Tengu, why would you do something like that? With tear-filled eyes, Daito Tengu tugged at the hem of her sleeve. I just wanted to let him know that you're living happily right now. I didn't mean anything else by it. But Kyoha Shimizu's eyes now held only deep, suffocating disappointment. I turned around and walked away without looking back, leaving that pair of scumbags stranded in the chilling wind in utter disarray. Daito Tengu's reputation for shamelessness was now completely cemented. The two of them quieted down for a good while after that, never daring to come make trouble in front of me again. Yet this brief peace was merely the precursor to an even greater storm about to descend. On a sunny weekend morning, I stood in front of the Go family estate, in high spirits as I prepared to head out. A silver-white sedan was parked by the roadside, its window rolling down to reveal a stunningly pretty face, none other than Koharu Lin. Her deep eyes were filled with an undisguised tenderness and deep affection. When I appeared, Koharu's gaze locked right onto me without blinking. She immediately hopped out of the car, pulled open the door, and even used her palm to shield the top of the doorframe for fear I would bump my head. I broke into a bright smile. Thank you, Koharu-ni-chan. Only at that moment did the stone drop from her heart, allowing her to finally relax. For the sake of this date, she had not only been so excited, she ran 5 laps around the neighborhood in the middle of the night, but she had even summoned her best friends for an all-night strategy meeting just to guarantee me a perfect weekend. Seeing her unable to hide her silly happy grin, I couldn't help laughing either. She's clearly a rose with thorns, so why does she look like a goofy little kitten when she smiles? Following that, Koharu Lin proudly pulled out a massive bag of snacks like she was presenting a treasure. I opened it up to find it packed entirely with my favorite treats. I picked up a piece of chocolate and popped it into my mouth, narrowing my eyes in bliss. This is delicious! Seeing my satisfied expression, Koharu Lin's heart practically melted. She asked gently, "Chen-chen, are you all ready?" Next, she was going to take me to a place I would never forget for the rest of my life. Koharu Lin stared unblinkingly at me, unable to tear her eyes away for even a second. Right then, she suddenly reached out a hand, gently brushing away a stray speck of sugar from the corner of my lips. The moment her fingertips brushed against my skin, my cheeks flushed bright red as if an electric current was shooting through my entire body. The moment our eyes met, time seemed to freeze, and the air grew heavy with an ambiguous, intimate tension. I turned my head away shyly. "Koharu-nichan, step on the gas." With a faint blush on her cheeks, Koharu Lin gave a soft cough. "All right, let's head out." Accompanied by soothing melody playing in the background, both of our moods completely unwound. I broke the silence, asking, "Koharu-nichan, don't you have work today?" The corners of Koharu Lin's lips curved upward as her gentle voice echoed softly inside the car. "Rest assured, today this entire day belongs solely to you." I turned my head slightly, letting my gaze fall onto Koharu Lin as I looked her up and down. Having slipped out of her professional business suit, Koharu Lin looked entirely like a vibrant university co-ed right now. Those deep, peach blossom eyes were enough to make anyone fall helplessly in love at a single glance. Catching me looking at her, Koharu Lin swallowed hard, secretly marveling to herself. Before leaving the house this morning, I checked myself in the mirror for ages. Will he actually like this outfit? Sensing her thoughts, I couldn't help smiling softly, saying in a gentle tone, "Koharu-nichan looks exceptionally pretty today." Hearing those words, the tips of Koharu Lin's ears turned blazing red, almost ready to drip blood. Yet she didn't forget to fire back a smooth compliment of her own. "Chen-chen looks pretty every single day." The atmosphere between us relaxed progressively as we chatted back and forth. Koharu Lin didn't want to take me to any crowded, noisy places. After all, given my peerless appearance, no matter where I went, I would easily draw a massive crowd of onlookers. She certainly didn't want her meticulously planned date ruined like that. Consequently, Koharu Lin drove me straight to a private cinema. The entire place had been booked out by her. All kinds of snacks and drinks were fully stocked, and the seats could even be adjusted to lie completely flat. Walking into the screening room, Koharu Lin asked, "Chen-chen, which movie do you want to watch?" Her voice was soft and low, sounding exceptionally captivating in the dimly lit space. I stared at the lineup of films displayed on the wall, my gaze lingering on a horror movie. The next second, I pointed at it without hesitation. "Let's watch this one." Koharu Lin followed the direction of my finger, raising an eyebrow with a hint of doubt in her tone. "Chen-chen, do you really want to watch this? That's a pretty famous horror film, known for being notoriously terrifying." I nodded lazily, blinking as I shot the question back at her. "Koharu-nichan, are you scared?" Hearing that, Koharu Lin's heart gave a slight jolt. She certainly wasn't about to admit she was terrified, especially not in front of someone she liked. So she hurriedly shook her head in denial, though her eyes drifted away nervously. "No, not at all. I was just worried that you might get scared. After all, this kind of horror movie isn't your average spooky flick." I gently patted her shoulder, the corners of my lips curving upward. "Don't worry, Koharu-nichan. If you get scared, well, we can just watch it together." Shortly after, the heavy doors of the screening room slowly closed, the lights clicked off abruptly, and the entire hall was swallowed whole by darkness. On the surface, Koharu Lin sat in her seat, pretending to be composed, but her palms were already drenched in cold sweat. As the plot progressed, eerie sound effects echoed frantically all around the room. Whenever a jump scare flashed across the screen, Koharu Lin would shudder violently all over. The system dango in my head was rolling around laughing hysterically. Not gonna lie, this movie was genuinely terrifying. Combined with the private cinema's unique atmosphere and surround sound system, the horror factor was dialed way up. During an exceptionally scary scene, I couldn't help letting out a soft gasp. my body instinctively leaning closer to Koharu Lin. Koharu Lin's heartbeat skipped a beat. She shifted slightly sideways, gently wrapping her arm around my shoulder. "Don't be afraid. Big Sis is here." Even though Koharu Lin was terrified out of her mind herself, the moment she realized I was scared, all her own fear instantly vanished into thin air. All she wanted was to give me a sense of absolute safety so I wouldn't be scared anymore. I paused for a split second, a faint pink blush blooming across my cheeks. Instead of pushing Koharu Lin away, I allowed her to hold me like that. In this darkened theater, we felt entirely cut off from the rest of the world, with only each other's existence remaining. Feeling my body temperature against hers, Koharu Lin's heart overflowed with happiness. Suddenly, the terrifying imagery on the screen faded into a dreamy backdrop of pink bubbles. I lifted my head slightly, my gaze locking with Koharu Lin's as the air grew heavy with an intimate haze. That atmosphere acted like an invisible thread, tightly intertwining our souls together. Within this ambiguous ambiance, our heartbeats accelerated rapidly, feeling as though they might burst right out of our chests. Koharu Lin leaned in slowly, her lips gently brushing against my forehead. That tender touch sent a surge of cozy warmth flooding through Koharu Lin's heart. Walking out of the movie theater afterward, the two of us exchanged a smile. Something between us had subtly shifted. Following that, Koharu Lin took me to play claw machines, and we walked away loaded with spoils, our hands barely able to hold them all. Looking at each other covered in plush toys hanging everywhere, we burst out laughing in amusement. Seeing the time growing later, Koharu Lin led me back into the car. She had arranged a very special dinner for me. The dinner was chosen at a famous mountainside scenic lookout in the city, where a cliffside restaurant was nestled. Naturally, this restaurant had also been ruthlessly booked out by the tyrannical Koharu. Because this was a moment belonging solely to her and me, she refused to let a single soul disturb it. The car parked in the mountainside lot, and walking to the restaurant required a walk of about 100 meters. Following in Koharu Lin's footsteps, I arrived at our reserved table, gently straightened the hem of my trousers, and sat down gracefully. At the same time, a waitress walked over with a warm, beaming smile, respectfully handing the menu over to Koharu Lin. Koharu Lin took the menu, turned her head slightly, and asked softly, "Chen-chen, is there any dish you're particularly fond of?" "Koharu Nichin, just order whatever you like," I replied with a smile. At that exact moment, the sunset outside the window looked like a gorgeous, brilliantly colored painting. My gaze was irresistibly drawn to it, causing the corners of my mouth to curl up into a faint, natural smile. Meanwhile, Koharu Lin's gaze remained fixed entirely on my profile. My handsome features were like a work of art, intoxicating her to the point of total oblivion. During dinner, we chatted and laughed away, our topics drifting from past memories all the way to our aspirations for the future. As night fell, glittering stars dotted the evening sky. Koharu Lin led me out onto the outdoor terrace, where we gazed up together at the vast, boundless sea of stars. Everything Koharu Lin had arranged today completely matched my preferences. I detested noise and deeply cherished quiet, peaceful moments. I turned my head to look at Koharu Lin. "Koharu Nichin, thank you for everything you've arranged today. I really love it." Koharu Lin instinctively wanted to reach out and adjust my collar, but ultimately pulled her hand back down. She reminded herself that there was still plenty of time ahead. I was still in high school, so she couldn't rush things. Things in the movie theater had already crossed the line. She would wait until I grew up. A text message notification chime sounded from Koharu Lin's phone. She unlocked the screen to find a flood of messages from Shoko Chiang scolding her for her recent power grab maneuvers. When she read the final line, "I only have one daughter named Kyoha Shimizu, and you are no longer my daughter," a look of sarcastic mockery crossed Koharu Lin's face. HMPH. When had Shoko Chiang ever truly considered her a daughter anyway? She had lost count of how many times she had heard those words. Noticing Koharu Lin's abnormal expression, I asked with caring concern, "What's wrong? Did you run into trouble at work?" Silently locking her phone screen, Koharu Lin shook her head lightly, replying with a helpless tone, "It's nothing, just received a text message from a lunatic." Even though I gently patted the top of Koharu Lin's head, as if stroking a docile cat, then spoke in a soothing voice. "Koharu-ni-chan, let's just forget about those annoying things. Everyone encounters misfortunes and frustrations in life. Being happy is a day, and being unhappy is also a day. So, Koharu-ni-chan, you must spend every single day happily, okay?" Koharu Lin stared quietly into my eyes, a warm wave of current surging through her heart. She lowered her gaze slightly, a gentle smile blooming on her lips. Lowering her eyes in thought for a brief moment, Koharu Lin looked back up toward the night sky. "Chen-chen, there's actually a secret about myself I've always wanted to tell you. I don't know if you're willing to listen." This secret had been buried deep inside Koharu Lin's heart for nearly 20 years. She had never revealed even a fraction of it to anyone else. Only when face to face with me was she able to open up her heart and bare her soul without reservation. The timeline flowed backward to when Koharu Lin was 8 years old. Back then, Shoko Chiang was facing irreconcilable family and career pressures, and unfortunately contracted bipolar disorder. This illness made her exceptionally sensitive, frequently flying into a rage over the most trivial, insignificant matters. Yet Koharu Lin didn't know her mother was sick. She only felt that her mother had changed. As her husband, Nan Shimizu not only failed to comfort his wife or help her seek treatment, but instead chose to run away from it all, ultimately committing adultery. He cheated with his own married subordinate, and the two of them used children as a shield for the sake of convenience. But a woman's sixth sense is a scary thing. Shoko Chiang still discovered something was amiss. That day, Shoko Chiang tracked Nan Shimizu, watching with her own eyes as he took Koharu Lin and the subordinate out to play at the park. The subordinate acted extremely gently in front of Koharu Lin, looking identical to how her mother used to be. Consequently, Koharu Lin grew exceptionally fond of this auntie as well. Shoko Chiang hid off to the side, watching her husband and daughter's smiling faces as if the people before her were the real family. Finally, she heard Nan Shimizu ask Koharu Lin, "Koharu, do you like auntie?" Koharu Lin raised her childish face and replied, "I like her, because auntie is just like mommy." Actually, what she originally meant was that auntie resembled her mother before she fell ill, and she hoped her mother would hurry up and go back to being her old self. But to Shoko Chiang's ears, this was undoubtedly a double betrayal by both her husband and her daughter. Stumbling back home in a daze, Shoko Chiang's mental state grew increasingly unhinged. She locked herself in her bedroom, filled the bathtub to the brim, and let herself sink beneath the water. Right at that moment, 3-year-old Kiyoha Shimizu suddenly started crying and howling for her mommy. Hearing Kiyoha Shimizu's heart-wrenching wails, Shoko Chiang crawled back out from the bathtub. She pulled Kiyoha Shimizu into a tight embrace, as if holding on to her only hope. From that day on, Shoko Chiang swore in her heart that she would live solely for Kiyoha Shimizu from then on. Just as Shoko Chiang made up her mind to divorce Nan Shimizu, fate dealt her a cruel blow, though it didn't wash away the hatred in her heart. Instead, she transferred all that bitter resentment onto Koharu Lin. Perhaps because she hadn't vented the pain in her heart to anyone for so long, she poured out all the trauma she had buried, deep in her chest for over a decade, straight into my ears. By the end of her story, the corners of her eyes were red, and her voice carried a slight choke. I originally thought my life was set in stone, destined to be manipulated like a puppet by the two of them forever, trapped in the palm of their hands with no escape. But fate is always full of dramatic twists and surprises, just when I was about to give up all hope, until that very day. That special night, I met you, Akira Go. Before that night, I had always been immersed in an endless, pitch-black abyss with not a single ray of light capable of piercing through that ocean of despair. I felt myself gradually suffocating, losing all passion and longing for life. Yet the moment you appeared before me, everything changed. You were like a dazzling ray of light suddenly illuminating the entire underwater world. Your appearance made me realize that I was still alive, that I still had feelings and desires. From that moment on, the desires that had slumbered deep within my heart were awakened. I yearned for freedom, yearned to break free from my shackles, yearned to experience fresh air and the azure sky once more. Looking at Koharu Lin's face which was painted with painful anguish, I couldn't help letting out a long sigh in my heart. So the truth of the matter turned out to be like this. At this very moment, I finally completely understood the reasons behind the tense relationship between Shoko-chan and Koharu-rin. I also understood why the Shimizu family refused to let Koharu-rin, their eldest daughter, inherit the family empire. I gently stroked Koharu-rin's cheek, locking my gaze onto her eyes as my voice overflowed with warmth and comfort. Koharu-ni-chan, this isn't your fault. You've always been an exceptionally wonderful person. For Shoko-san to treat you like this is her loss. I hope you learn to value yourself. Only when you truly love yourself will others love you in return. Thank you, Akira, Koharu said, catching my hand as a flicker of profound emotion danced through her eyes. I offered a gentle smile, like a warm spring breeze smoothing away the scars on Koharu's heart. Koharu-ni-chan, you must pull yourself together. Let the past remain in the past. You still have a wonderful future ahead of you. Koharu nodded. I will, it's just, I don't know how to face Shoko. Give her a little time, and give yourself a little time, I encouraged her. Someday, the two of you will untangle this knot in your hearts. Gazing at me, a rush of warmth welled up in Koharu's chest. I'll try my best. Her gaze grew firm and resolute. Suddenly, the System Dango's voice chimed in my head. This Koharu is so pitiful. Chen-chen, are we really still going to use her? Use her? I lowered my eyes, masking the intricate emotions swirling within them. The absolute best way to deal with Shoko and the Shimizu group was to infiltrate the enemy from within. Only by finding their weak points could one secure a sweeping victory. And Koharu happened to fit right into place as a pivotal piece in that plan. If Koharu could manage to supplant Shoko and become the CEO of the Shimizu group, the possibility of Kyoha Shimizu inheriting the family business would be virtually eliminated, thereby removing the greatest latent threat to the Go family's bankruptcy crisis. Of course, Koharu also happened to be quite much to my taste. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother sacrificing myself to put on an act like this. In matters of the heart, between the genuine and the fake, who can really tell where the line is drawn anyway? Koharu had also given me quite a few pleasant surprises. She was deeply unfathomable, brilliant, and stunningly capable. It had barely been any time at all, and she had already pushed Shoko into such a corner. It looked like this mission was fast approaching completion. Afterward, Koharu drove me back to the Go estate, pulling the car to a smooth stop. Looking at Koharu, I said, Koharu-ni-chan, thank you for everything you arranged today. I genuinely had a wonderful time. Koharu smiled faintly, softly patting the top of my head with a gesture brimming with tender fondness. Seeing you so happy makes me feel like everything was worth it. Her voice was soft and melodic, like the tinkling of a clear spring, making my heart skip a beat. Suddenly, I leaned forward quickly, closing the distance between us as my handsome features gradually magnified in her field of vision. My dark eyes were deep and profound, the corners of my thin lips curving upward with a playfully teasing smile. Her breathing hitched, her heart pounding like thunder. For a split second, her mind went completely blank, unable to process a single thought. The distance between us was so intimate that, from an outsider's perspective, it would look as though we were passionately locking lips. Yet, contrary to what Koharu might have anticipated, I didn't kiss her. Instead, I simply raised a hand to gently brush away a speck of dust from her cheek. Koharu-ni-chan, your face got dirty. Let me wipe it off for you, I teased with a smile. Hearing my words, the tips of Koharu's ears flushed bright red. She lowered her head in mild embarrassment, while secretly feeling a wave of relief that she hadn't been misunderstood after all. Yet at the exact same time, a surge of rising emotion. The final few words slipped from my lips with an extra layer of bewitching allure. The sound brushed against her like a soft feather, gently tickling the strings of Koharu's heart. The remark landed like a thunderclap right beside her ear, making her heart hammer frantically all over again as if it were about to burst out of her throat. Her eyes betrayed a trace of shyness and distress as she struggled desperately to mask her inner panic. She hurriedly took a sip of water to cover up her awkwardness. Hey, Akira, stop messing with me." Her voice was slightly hoarse, carrying an unperceived layer of tenderness. Koharu felt as though her heart was being held right in the palm of my little demon hand, being squeezed and nudged at will. Yet instead of being angry, she felt even more elated. She wanted me to show my true self in front of her, complete with my little temper tantrums and quirks. That was the only way she could feel closer to me. Tilting my head slightly, I blinked brightly at Koharu, with a mischievous smile playing at the corners of my mouth. "Koharu Nichan, I'm not joking at all." "Oh?" Koharu's posture straightened slightly as her heartbeat skipped another beat. Gazing at my serious expression, an indescribable joy surged through her chest. "Chenchin, what do you mean by that?" Koharu's voice trembled slightly, her eyes brimming with eager anticipation and nervous tension. As I gently let go, it felt as though countless fireworks were blooming inside her heart. She reached out and softly took hold of my hand. That delicate contact practically melted her soul. Her eyes overflowed with warmth and deep affection, as if she wanted to carve my image deep into the bottom of her heart. "Chenchin, I like you too. I've always liked you," Koharu said softly, her voice laden with profound emotion. She drew slowly closer to me, gently gathering me into her embrace. We held each other quietly like that, as if time itself had frozen to a standstill. Everything around us blurred into obscurity, leaving only the presence of each other feeling utterly crystal clear. Koharu gently stroked my hair. Ultimately, it was getting far too late in the evening. I finally stepped out of the car, waving goodbye to Koharu. "Koharu Nechen, I'm heading inside now. Drive safely." "Good night. Get some rest early." Koharu watched me walk inside before reluctantly driving away. The Go estate was brightly lit, having kept the lights on specifically for me. I raised my gaze toward the room on the western side. The windows were tightly shuttered behind heavy curtains, devoid of a single ray of light, making it stand out in stark contrast to the rest of the house. The corners of my lips curved upward as I stepped inside the estate and returned to my room. Upstairs, Yuki Ito sat limply leaning against the cold windowsill, her eyes clouded with an endless abyss of gloom. The scene she had just witnessed downstairs struck her like a massive boulder crashing down onto her chest, leaving her in excruciating agony. She simply couldn't comprehend why I would make such a choice. Setting aside the fact that Koharu was 5 years older than me, she was also Kyoha Shimizu's biological sister. How could I possibly choose someone like that? In the past, she had mistakenly thought she was falling in love with Daito Tengu, drawn to his sunny, lively disposition. Because of that, even when Daito Tengu and Kyoha Shimizu fell in love, she had been willing to silently guard Daito's happiness from the sidelines, purely for the sake of seeing his bright smile. Yet ever since I entered her life, everything had changed. She finally understood what true romantic love was. Love wasn't merely quiet appreciation. It was the desperate desire to possess completely. She yearned to pull me tightly into her arms and make me exclusively hers. At that moment, the dark gleam deep within Yuki's eyes grew even more intense. "Akira, go. You can only belong to me." Returning to school the next day, due to the previous incident, the students of the rocket class took extra cautious care of me. Whenever a stranger wandered near our classroom, they were instantly subjected to the watchful gazes of the entire rocket class, ensuring nobody dared pull any funny business. Aside from the rocket class, a club quietly popped up around the campus called the Male God Support Association. The members of the fan club acted like loyal knights, strictly safeguarding my safety on school grounds and barring all forms of harassment so I could enjoy a normal student life. Furthermore, they relayed my explicit orders. Absolutely no love letters or gifts would be accepted. If anyone was caught trying to sneak me a gift, the consequences would be severe. The president of the fan club was none other than Nyanango, while Shinji Eto, Yuki Eto, and Zhao Yelin had all enlisted as members. Refusing to give up, Kyoha Shimizu even submitted an application to join the fan club. Upon discovering it, Nyanango rolled his eyes so hard it hurt, crumpling the application sheet into a paper ball and tossing it straight into the trash can. Trash belongs in the trash. Protected in this manner, my school life grew exceptionally peaceful. Although I still drew stares whenever I appeared in public, fortunately people limited themselves to looking without attempting any reckless stunts. During the lunch hour in the private cafeteria dining room, I patted Nianen's head with a grateful smile. Thanks for everything you've done, Nianan. It really saved me a ton of hassle. Nianan sat beside me, acting a bit spoiled. Well, big brother, am I your absolute favorite younger? Seeing my smiling eyes, he softened his tone. Of course you are. You're an immensely important family member to me. The intimate dynamic between the two brothers left the three young women at the table green with envy. Xiaoya Lin bitterly stabbed her fork into a piece of food, only to realize it was a slice of ginger disguised as a potato. Choking, Xiaoya coughed and hastily spat it out. Everyone turned to look. Mortified at making such a clumsy fool of herself in front of her crush, Xiaoya flushed crimson and stammered in explanation. I just accidentally bit into some ginger. Teasing her like a fellow troublemaker, Xinyu Jiang chimed in. Xiaoya, you couldn't even see a chunk of ginger that big? You really need to go get an eye exam. Xiaoya just wanted to end the conversation right there and avoid arguing with Xinyu, so she merely glanced up briefly before quickly looking away again. Xiaoya's heart felt sour. What on earth did she have to do to make me look at her? Oh right, Nianan, your birthday is coming up soon. How do you want to celebrate? I asked suddenly. Nianan looked touched. Big brother, you actually remembered my birthday! I chuckled lightly. You're my younger brother, of course. A big brother has to remember your birthday. Nian pondered for a moment. Well, it's just turning 17 anyway, nothing too special. We won't throw a huge bash. Let's just head out to a KTV, sing some songs, and grab dinner. Most importantly, Nianan looked at me with a sparkling gleam in his eyes. Big brother. You have to stay with me the whole day, though. Naturally, I agreed. Xiaoya Lin immediately jumped in to claim a spot. Nianan Wen, I'm coming to your birthday too. I'll definitely bring you a wonderful gift. The other two weren't about to lose out either, and quickly chimed in that they would be attending. Nian glanced sideways at the three women with a haughty sniff. Fine, for the sake of the gifts, I'll allow you lot to attend this young master's birthday. My gaze swept slowly across the crowd, a subtle, ambiguous smile curving my lips, yet that smile never quite reached my eyes. Over the past few weeks, Shokogo had been swamped with corporate operations and heavy business duties. Koharu had also delivered several multi-million-dollar partnership contracts on behalf of the Shimizu Group. I knew full well that with Koharu growing so close to me lately, those contracts were clearly sent over intentionally. It was obvious Shokogo hadn't wanted to accept them at first, presumably feeling uncomfortable owing personal favors. So I had stepped in and unhesitatingly told them to take the projects. I firmly reasoned that these were simply debts the Shimizu Group owed them from the past, so they shouldn't harbor any psychological burden. Even though Shokogo remained clueless about what debts Shimizu actually owed them, seeing how resolute I was, she dropped her hesitation. Only a fool turns down free money, especially since the Go family business had indeed been on a downward slide over recent years. For this birthday, wanting to express her affection for Nianan, Shokogo had specially gifted him a luxury apartment located right by the riverfront. Before heading out on the day of the birthday, Shokogo repeatedly exhorted Nianan, "Make sure you take good care of your big brother, you hear me?" Having a younger brother take care of an older brother sounded a bit upside down. But in our household, it seemed to be second nature. After all, in their eyes, I was delicate, gentle, and soft-spoken, constantly making them worry that someone might bully me. Nianan patted his chest robustly. "Don't worry! With Nianan here, nobody lays a single hair on Big Brother's head." Tianlei Club, renowned as the largest entertainment venue in the city, boasted a level of lavish interior design that dropped jaws, with consumption rates beyond what ordinary people could fathom. Nianan's birthday gathering was hosted right here in the venue's largest private VIP suite, complete with a professional DJ hired to spin tracks and amp up the energy. As soon as Nianan pushed open the door to the club suite, pop! Confetti rained down from above as everyone cheered, "Happy 17th birthday, Nianan!" Nianan was well-liked with plenty of friends, and knowing I would be attending as well, the suite was packed with at least 40 or 50 people. Letting out a joyful shriek, Nianan rushed in to hug his friends, and everyone quickly scattered into groups, some wrestling over microphones while others swayed in the dance area. The people who managed to make it to Nianan's birthday bash were strictly vetted individuals. I could tell they kept their distance, only sneaking admiring glances at me without daring to pull any stunts. Presumably, Nianhan had given them strict warnings beforehand not to bother me under any circumstances. I casually claimed a seat in a quiet corner. Xin Yujiang, Xiaoya Lin, and Xin Yujiang quickly formed an alliance and crowded onto the couch right beside me. Xiaoya picked up a glass of juice from the table and handed it over to me. Taking the juice, I gave it a gentle swirl, with a light smile playing on my lips. Under the dim, moody lighting of the private suite, I could feel the intense gazes of the three girls burning into my profile, making my throat tighten up slightly. Suddenly, looking over at them, I suggested, "Since it's Nianan's birthday, why don't we get some drinks going to liven up the mood?" Drinks? Xiaoya and the others exchanged glances. Even though they were still minors, they had long since lost count of how many times they drank alcohol, so naturally, they weren't afraid. I sighed gently. "Well, if you guys aren't up for it, we can just skip." Seeing me backpedal, Xiaoya and the others hurriedly agreed. Spotting this with sharp eyes, Nianan hollered, "Hey, drinking without me? No way, I'm having some too." Remembering that he had grown up mingling around elite banquets and had plenty of drinking experience under his belt, plus the fact that he was technically a teenager, I gave in. "Fine, but you are not allowed to drink too much, you hear me?" Nian grinned broadly. "Oh, relax, big brother. Basic beer is child's play. Where there's alcohol, there has to be drinking games." Nianan proposed playing liar's dice. The loser either drinks or chooses between truth and dare. Just as we got everything set up, the door to the KTV room was pushed open. Starting from Nianan, the 7 players shared a total of 35 dice. Nianan kicked things off with a conservative call, 8 fives. Seated right next to Nianan was Xiaoya. Glancing at Nian's expression, she called out, 10 sixes. Xin Yujiang followed up with 13 sixes. Yuki Ito chose to challenge immediately, calling out his final count. 12, we're still short one. The crowd erupted into jeers. Acknowledging his bad luck, Xinyu picked up a mug of beer and downed it. Wiping his mouth, he barked, "Keep going!" Kyoha Shimizu called out 10 sixes. Yuki challenged. Kyoha muttered in exasperation. "You're challenging on 10 sixes?" Yuki replied indifferently. "I'm challenging you. You lose, I drink." All the dice cups were lifted and counted. There happened to be exactly 9 sixes. Resigning herself to her bad luck, Kyoha had to drink a glass of alcohol. After a few rounds of the game, Kyoha Shimizu was losing the hardest. The suite was lively and bustling, with everyone enjoying themselves. Noticing nobody was paying attention to him, Daito Tengu stealthily pulled a small pouch out of his bag. He emptied the powdered contents into my glass of drink, then quickly stirred it with his finger. Once finished, and seeing nobody noticed, Daito Tengu let out a sigh of relief. I swept a cold, indifferent glance his way, a sneer curling my lip. Talk about having a death wish. As a new round commenced, Nianan opened the bidding, 9 fives. Xinyu followed up with 10 sixes. Then Yuki called 12 sixes. Glancing over at Daito Tengu beside me, I calmly stated, 16 fives. Jumping straight from 12 to 16 added 4 to the count instantly, and there were only 35 dice in total on the table. Even with wild ones in play, that number was extraordinarily risky. Daito Tengu chuckled. "Akira-go, I honestly didn't want to challenge you, but that number is just way too outrageous. If I don't call you out, it looks like I'm throwing the game on purpose." I looked at him with feigned innocence. "Well, are you going to challenge or not?" Daito Tengu raised an eyebrow. "Challenge?" I flipped open my cup first to reveal a single 5. Seeing this, Daito Tengu grinned smugly. "Akira, go, do you even know how to play this game? Having only one is pretty hard to win with." Nianan rolled his eyes hard. "Hey, why don't you check out our dice first?" Scanning the circle of cups, Daito Tengu's face turned instantly pale. "How are there so many 5s?" Nianhan let out a malicious chuckle. Well, Tengu-san, you lost. Is it a drink, or truth or dare?" Daito Tengu smiled bitterly. "I've already had this much to drink, so I'll take truth or dare." "Akira-kun, go ahead and ask." Resting my chin on my hands, I tapped my slender fingers lightly against the table surface. I hear Daito Tengu is fluent in 4 languages. Why don't you demonstrate by briefly explaining the rules of this game in 4 different languages?" At those words, Daito Tengu's face stiffened instantly. He bit down hard on his lower lip, panic and anxiety flashing through his eyes. The surrounding students turned expectant gazes toward him, eager to witness whether this campus idol renowned for his language proficiency was truly that impressive. Right now, Daito Tengu's mind was a complete mess. He did know some foreign languages, sure, but he only knew basic conversational phrases and simple vocabulary. Asking him to translate such complex gaming rules on the spot was something he simply couldn't do. To make matters worse, half the school was right there watching him. Neon urged him impatiently. "Hurry up! Don't tell me that whole fluent in 4 languages rumor was fake." Even Kyoha Shimizu eyed Daito Tengu suspiciously. Under everyone's scrutiny, Daito Tengu forced himself to stumble through an awkward explanation in English, the language he was most comfortable with. Nianen curled his lip. "That Chinglish accent is worse than mine." Realizing people weren't pressing too hard, Daito Tengu decided to throw caution to the wind. They didn't know any better anyway. He could just throw together random everyday phrases and pass them off. Mimicking the intonation of Korean speakers, Daito Tengu quickly blurted out a translation in Korean. The moment his voice trailed off, dead silence fell over the suite. Daito Tengu breathed a sigh of relief. Right, just like that. They don't understand a word anyway. Next, following the same template, he parroted another foreign tongue, French for the final language. Just as Daito Tengu thought he had successfully bluffed his way through, Nianan suddenly turned to me and asked, "Big brother, didn't you live in France for a long time? Is what he translated correct?" Daito Tengu froze, his hands and feet turning ice cold. How could he forget that I just returned from France? How could I not know French? Recalling the gibberish he had just spewed out, Daito Tengu felt the world go black before his eyes. Pushing up her glasses, Xiaoya piped up, "I actually know a bit of foreign language and French. All I can say is that translation is absolute garbage." Daito Tengu's face flushed bright red as the entire room burst out into uproarious laughter. Kenjigo mocked, "No way, Daito Tengu. You said that with such a straight face, I actually believed your nonsense." Daito Tengu forced a laugh and explained, "My proficiency is indeed just average. I've made a fool of myself in front of you all." Originally, Daito Tengu just wanted to quickly gloss over this incident. After all, as long as no one looked into it too deeply, he could continue to keep up the charade. However, to his surprise, the students around them who had actually studied those foreign languages quickly stepped forward. They began pointing out that Daito Tengu's translations were completely wrong. Not only that, even his English had numerous glaring grammatical errors. These voices surged toward Daito Tengu like a tidal wave, leaving him completely defenseless. At this moment, Daito Tengu felt as if his face had been viciously ripped apart. The gazes of the surrounding crowd were like sharp scissors, deeply piercing his heart. He watched as the people around him stared with disdainful eyes, constantly hurling ugly words like liar and thief at him. These words were like sharp knives, ruthlessly stabbing into the deepest depths of Daito Tengu's heart. He looked at Kyoha Shimizu with a pleading gaze, hoping she would smooth things over for him, but Kyoha Shimizu was already deeply disappointed in Daito Tengu. Why would she pay any attention to him now? She could speak foreign languages too, and the foreign languages Daito Tengu had spoken had absolutely nothing to do with the rules of the game. Thinking back to how Daito Tengu used to intentionally, accidentally show off his supposed fluency in 4 languages in front of her, making her look at him in a new light, she now felt like an absolute idiot. Kyoha Shimizu frowned and looked at him. "Daito Tengu, since you don't actually know 4 languages, why did you lie?" Daito Tengu's brain felt like it had been smashed by a hammer. At the same time, he felt his body growing increasingly hot and feverish. A surge of pent-up anger was trapped in his body, desperate to be unleashed. Suddenly, Daito Tengu stood up and shouted in a complete breakdown, "Enough! I didn't lie. I do know 4 languages. I just don't speak them well. I'm just not that proficient. From the very beginning, I never claimed to be perfectly fluent in these 4 languages, did I? You guys just misunderstood." Seeing Daito Tengu still trying to argue his way out of it, Kenji-go directly pointed out, "You might not have said it, but when everyone was praising you, you didn't deny it either, did you? You enjoyed the thrill of people putting you on a pedestal, and now that you've been exposed, you can't accept it." Shinji Eto crossed his legs unceremoniously and provoked him. "I say, Daito Tengu, is there a single word of truth that comes out of your mouth? I'm starting to suspect you even faked your past exam scores." Daito Tengu's eyes were bloodshot, furious to the extreme. "Do you have proof? Just because I'm not that proficient in 4 languages doesn't mean my academic grades are fake, Shinji Eto. How can you insult me like this? Weren't we friends before?" Shinji Eto curled his lip. "Friends? I never admitted that. You're just Kyoha Shimizu's boyfriend. Besides, didn't you say yourself that you look down on the daughters of wealthy families? How did we suddenly become friends now?" Daito Tengu was trembling all over with anger. From the corner of his eye, he caught me looking at him with a mocking gaze. The taut string in his mind finally snapped. Daito Tengu looked up, scanning the crowd, and suddenly started laughing. "Ha ha! You're all here criticizing me, but are you guys any better?" Daito Tengu first pointed at Kyoha Shimizu, his eyes burning with raging fire, his voice so shrill it seemed to tear through the air. "Kyoha Shimizu, you are an absolute scumbag. It was you who shamelessly chased after me in the beginning. You had a fiancé, yet you still had the audacity to come on to me without any sense of shame. And now look at you. I'm the one taking all the blame while you hide like a turtle pulling its head into its shell, completely blending into the background. You're disgusting." The more Daito Tengu cursed, the more agitated he became, his face flushing bright red and his body trembling slightly from the sheer anger. Kyoha Shimizu was so furious she stomped her feet. "Shut your mouth!" But Daito Tengu wasn't going to let it go that easily. Glaring fiercely, he pointed at Xiaoyalin, spit flying as he cursed. "And you, Xiaoyalin, you're supposed to be Kyoha Shimizu's childhood best friend. But for the sake of a man, you threw away your friendship just like that. Do you have any humanity left in you? You're just a selfish, self-serving hypocrite. On the surface, you act like you and Kyoha are as close as sisters, but behind her back, you stab her. On one hand, you think she doesn't deserve to be your friend, but on the other hand, you constantly claim you're sisters. You are an absolute two-faced master of deception." Daito Tengu was red in the face from yelling, his voice growing hoarse, but his fury showed no signs of waning. The crowd stared at Daito Tengu in dumbfounded shock. His combat power was way too fierce. Hearing this, Kyoha Shimizu glared at Xiaoyalin. "Xiaoyalin, is everything he said true?" Xiaoyalin remained silent. That reaction only made the flames of anger in Kyoha Shimizu's heart burn even more violently. Kyoha Shimizu was so angry she wanted to march right up and punch Xiaolin, but Shinji Eto held her back. Naturally, Daito Tengu didn't leave Shinji Eto out. He sneered sinisterly, "Shinji Eto, don't rush, I haven't forgotten about you. You follow Xiaoyalin around every day, looking so happy. Between the two, good sisters, why did you choose Xiaoyalin? Because you also like Akira Go. You know perfectly well that Xiaoyalin likes Akira Go, yet you still tag along beside her every day like a shadow. Isn't it just so you can see Akira Go? On the surface, you pretend to have a deep bond with Xiaoyalin, but in reality, you're calculating your own little schemes. During PE class last time, when you saw Akira Go resting alone in the classroom, you skipped class yourself to go see him, and when you saw he was sleeping, you leaned in and kissed him. Shinji Eto, have you no shame? Did you think you did it without anyone noticing? Now that I've exposed you, let's see how you can face anyone." This statement was like a bomb going off in the private karaoke room. Everyone glared furiously at Shinji Eto. "You actually dared to secretly kiss the school idol?" Yuki Eto's face turned terrifyingly dark. Daito Tengu looked up and caught sight of her, letting out a sinister chuckle full of malice and mockery. "And you're the most terrifying one of all, Yuki Eto, my good, adopted sister. On the outside, you put on this innocent, pure act, but on the inside, you're darker than anyone else. Back before Akira Go returned to the country, you were the deceitful one who told me to use public opinion to deal with him. All those posts on the school BBS were made by you. You truly are vicious. But after Akira Go returned, you immediately switched sides, you shameless traitor. The flames of fury burned in Daito Tengu's eyes, as if he wanted to burn Yuki Eto to ashes. It's a pity, though. Look at the people around you. Which one of them isn't a high and mighty young lady from a wealthy family calling the shots? But what are you? Just a pathetic parasite living under someone else's roof, resorting to those dirty, underhanded tricks on me. Before Daito Tengu could finish his sentence, Yuki Eto covered his mouth and knocked him unconscious with a single slap. Seeing the astonished looks from the crowd, Yuki Eto explained, Daito Tengu is notoriously cowardly, so seeing him turn into a raging T-Rex all of a sudden is really quite an eye-opener. A second later, I stepped forward and said, call 119 and get him to the hospital, and call 110 for the police. The crowd finally snapped back to reality. Right. We'd better get him to the hospital quickly, or it'll be bad if something serious happens. After the calls were made, dead silence fell over the private room. I held Kenji Go's cold hand and said, Kenji, I'm sorry. It's all because of me that your birthday party was ruined. I originally didn't plan on making a move against Daito Tengu here. It was only when I saw him drug my drink that I decided to play him at his own game and give him a taste of his own medicine. Kenji Go shook his head, gritting his teeth. Brother, it's not your fault. It's all the fault of those two uninvited guests. They knew perfectly well we didn't welcome them, yet they shamelessly forced their way in anyway. Kyoha Shimizu stood there awkwardly. I didn't know Daito Tengu would suddenly go crazy. And wasn't I the one getting cursed at? Just then, the system Dango asked in my mind, Aki-chan, is this drug really that terrifying? To make a person completely change like this and lose every shred of reason? I replied in my mind, the drug simply unleashes the malice hidden in his heart. Daito Tengu was never the type to just swallow being bullied. The grievances he's suffered recently had been building up inside him, making him irritable to begin with. Couple that with his lie about knowing 4 languages being exposed, and it snapped his tightly wound final string. After the ambulance and police arrived, everyone present was taken back to the police station to give their statements one by one. Since further investigation was required, the police could only have everyone's families come and pick them up for now. At this point, only 4 people were left in the police station. Myself, Kenji Go, Yuki Ito, and Kyoha Shimizu. Yuki Eto was rather quiet, standing silently to the side, a trace of anxiety flickering in her eyes. Kyoha Shimizu, on the other hand, had a dark expression on her face, seemingly extremely dissatisfied with what had just transpired. Kenji Go stood beside me. I patted his head and pulled a plush toy out of my bag. It was a chibi plushie I had handmade based on my impression of Kenji. Kenji, I haven't given you your birthday gift yet. Here, see if you like it. Kenji Go took the plushie with pleasant surprise. Brother, this plushie looks exactly like me. It was made in your image. Kenji Go looked shocked. Brother, did you make this by hand? I nodded. Kenji Go instantly jumped up in joy. I love this gift so much. Thank you, big brother. I love you so much. Although this gift couldn't compare in price to the others, in Kenji Go's heart, all the gifts he received today combined weren't as important as this one. Hearing this, expressions of extreme jealousy and envy appeared on the faces of Yuki Eto and Kyoha Shimizu. This kid is just too lucky. ... Just then, a familiar sedan pulled up to the entrance of the police station. Koharu Shimizu's beautiful face appeared before everyone. Kyoha Shimizu was a bit surprised. Sis, are you here to pick me up? Kyoha Shimizu still didn't know about the company affairs, only that Koharu hadn't been living at home for a long time. Therefore, she was extremely surprised to see her older sister. Koharu cast a casual glance at her, then walked briskly straight over to me. I shook my head. I'm fine. Hearing this, Koharu let out a breath of relief. She tenderly brushed a strand of hair from my face. I've already spoken with Uncle Go. I'm here to take you all home. Nearby, Yuki Eto glared gloomily at Koharu, remaining completely silent. Kyoha Shimizu watched this scene with wide eyes. What is going on? Has my sister already gotten this close with the Go family? Why isn't Akira repulsed by Koharu at all, and even letting her stand right beside him? Watching Koharu get ready to take the 3 of us away, Kiyoha Shimizu couldn't help but ask, "Sis, what about me? Am I still your sister?" Koharu looked back at Kiyoha. This younger sister of hers had obviously been quite cute when they were little. But the older she got, the more out of line she became. Koharu already knew everything that had happened in the private room today. Knowing full well that they disliked her and hadn't invited her, she still shamelessly forced her way in. She even brought that boy along. What exactly her intentions were, Koharu saw right through at a glance. For other matters, Koharu might have turned a blind eye. But whenever it involved me, Koharu wasn't willing to tolerate a single thing. So she coldly dropped a single sentence. "I'm taking them back. You wait here. Someone will come to pick you up." Once out of the police station, Kenji-go couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Brother, did you see the look on Kiyoha Shimizu's face? It was too funny." Kiyoha Shimizu really made a huge joke out of herself today. I'd like to see if she still has the face to show up at school tomorrow. Koharu walked over to the passenger side of the car, pulled out a box from inside, and walked over to them. She handed the box to Kenji-go. "Happy birthday, Kenji. This is a birthday gift." After thanking her, Kenji-go took the box and opened it, his eyes lighting up. "Wow! A Faraday watch!" "Koharu, you're way too generous. The cheapest Faraday watch costs over 100,000. The one in his hands was encrusted with fine diamonds. One look, and anyone could tell it wasn't cheap. Suddenly, as if remembering something, Kenji put the watch down and tried to return it to Koharu. "I can't accept such an expensive gift. You should take it back." But Koharu seemed to have expected this. She smiled softly. "I've already cleared it with your dad. Just relax and accept it." I also chimed in from the side. "Kenji, just accept it." "Really?" Hearing my words, Kenji-go joyfully strapped the watch onto his wrist. Then he gave Koharu a big thumbs up. "Koharu, as a sister-in-law, you pass. Barely." "All right, get in the car. I'll take you back." Along the way, Kenji-go was incredibly excited, frequently teasing Koharu, and the three of us shared constant laughter. Sitting by the window in the back seat, Yuki Eto listened to our laughter without saying a word. She leaned back against her seat, obsessively staring at me sitting in the front passenger seat. Kenji-go, noticing that Yuki Eto still dared to look at me with such a creepy stare, sneered, "Yuki Eto." "You?" I turned back to look at Yuki Eto, as if waiting for her to explain as well. Yuki Eto's hands unconsciously balled into fists. "I admit it. I was the one who made those posts." "Yuki Eto, you really are shameless. After all that, how do you still have the nerve to act all innocent in front of my brother?" Kenji-go said angrily. Yuki Eto hurriedly explained. "That was because I didn't know Akira back then. Plus, Daito Tengu was constantly complaining to me." Yuki Eto's voice trailed off. "I'm sorry. It was my fault." "So that gives you the right to throw dirty water on my brother?" Kenji-go was boiling with rage. Yuki Ito lowered her head in silence. She knew that no matter what she said now, it would only make Kenji-go angrier. "All right, Kenji, stop arguing," I said softly. "The matter is already in the past." Kenji-go glared at Yuki Eto and fell silent. The atmosphere in the car was rather awkward for a while, until the vehicle finally pulled up to the entrance of the Go family villa. "Thank you for taking us home, Koharu-ni-chan," I said, thanking Koharu after stepping out of the car. "Aki-chan, you never need to thank me. Hurry on inside," Koharu responded with a smile. Watching Koharu's car drive away in the distance, Kenji-go turned to Yuki Eto. "Stay away from my brother from now on." With that, he grabbed my hand and led me into the house. After returning home and washing up, I lounged lazily on my bed. Holding my phone, I saw that the events of the birthday party had spread quickly and were already posted on the school's BBS forum. The comments below were filled entirely with mockery, directed at Daito Tengu and his group. Originally, plenty of people at Meitoku Academy disliked them, especially since they were dubbed the Meitoku Trio, knowing only how to strut around school showing off every day. Now that they had infought, everyone was clapping and cheering in satisfaction. Yuki Eto's everyday honor student facade was also torn down. In particular, people pointed out that as the adopted daughter of the Go family, she was completely ungrateful. Not many people sympathized with Daito Tengu getting drugged either. They all said it was a good thing he was drugged, otherwise they never would have found out about the shady things these people did behind closed doors. I browsed for a little while longer before turning off my phone. That's all for this video. Thank you, fans, for your enthusiastic support.